Throw the vacuums hanging up.
All right. Pardon me. Good evening, everybody. Let me call the Parklands meeting to order for November 21st, 2024. We've got a full house tonight and a full agenda, so we'll try to work through it as quickly as we can. And would you like to lead us in the pledge of allegiance tonight?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's have a roll call.
Committee member McKinney,
Here.
committee member Rossick, committee member Nye.
Here.
Vice Chair Rossick.
Here.
And Chair Cooper.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, do we have a Public Works Director's report this evening?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Well, in that case, do we have any communications from the public that don't involve the items on our agenda tonight? I see one card that doesn't have an agenda item, and the name is Judy Kolich, but I have a feeling that's an agenda item. It is. Okay. And is that Paseo Del Mar?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so with that being said, let's get into the agenda. Item number 1 on the agenda, and excuse my voice tonight, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm going to be a little scratchy.
Turn that on. Item number 1 is PC 583-24, application to remove one pine tree located in the Parklands adjacent and at the rear of 1624 via Zarita. And do we have a staff report?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Parklands Committee, and members of the audience. The request tonight is to remove one pine tree for safety reasons. The location is in the Parklands at the rear of the house. I know that it may have been difficult for the Parklands members to get there, so that's why I'm providing the map. Tree is a mature tree. I rated the tree as in fair condition. The inventory that just was conducted by Westcoast Arborist indicates it's in good condition. When considering an application for removal of public trees for non-due reasons, the Parklands Committee must seek to strike a reasonable balance between the preservation and enhancement of mature trees, protection of privacy, and the preservation of public safety for each property owner. The Parklands Committee shall respect the existing neighborhood character and not significantly alter the unique feeling of a particular neighborhood. This is the Parklands, and it's not really like a neighborhood. It's a lot of pine trees behind the house, probably planted by the previous resident. The Parklands Committee shall respect the existing neighborhood character and not significantly alter the unique feeling of a particular neighborhood. People that see this tree, or this is where I'm taking the pictures from for that neighborhood character. And the people that would see this tree are in the circles there, which staff report indicates is the flag lot at 1632 via Zarita, and we neglected to mention 1620 via Zarita. Removal of the tree will not affect the neighborhood character. The Parklands Committee shall respect the privacy of neighbors by maintaining to the greatest extent practical adequate screening of structures and yards from the sight of their neighbors. This is one neighbor that can see the tree, but it doesn't screen the structures. And this is the other house that can see the tree, but it doesn't screen the structure. The tree doesn't provide screening of structures or provide privacy for any resident. Parklands Committee shall consider, to the extent reasonably practical, the preservation or enhancement of public safety. This is the tree from the rear, and you can see it's stable, straight. It's not, doesn't appear that it does in some of the pictures that you'll see. It doesn't provide any screening. There's a forest behind it. And this is part of the tree. As you can see, the other part of the tree is off the screen. The tree is not currently unsafe or hazardous. The applicant indicates that the tree is a fire hazard, and if the tree were to fall, it will damage the structure being built. This is the plan of the wall that was submitted. And this is, the red line is where the wall is supposed to be, and the orange line is where the wall was built. This did impact the tree, but I'm unable to determine what kind of impacts it would have on the roots that it would cut. As you can see, lots of roots were cut on the tree to build this wall. This one is bleeding because it was a very fresh cut. And you can see where the tree is relative to the structure. It does cross the property line, but we don't remove trees for hypotheticals. And we think the tree is not at risk at this moment. There are a number of options available to the committee tonight. And it would be a matter of committee discretion. We've indicated, or we've included the conditions of approval. They're standard, except number 10, which is the stump removal is optional. We'll be happy to get a stump grinder to the area, and it may destabilize the slope. And so if the stump was to remain, that wouldn't be an issue. And that would complete the staff report.
All right, do we have questions of staff?
I've got a question. Carl, do you have any renderings of how the completed structure will look? It wasn't clear from looking at the concrete walls that have been built so far, whether those were just the beginning of a larger structure, whether those were, the perimeters for just, planned or what. So I'm wondering.
That was a question I had too. If you're referring to where the rebar is sticking up, I believe that's going to be a roof.
So that'll be a roof at that level.
Would you please repeat that?
So I'm looking at the wall kind of under the red circle there. That's the edge of a roof, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. But no other drawings like of how the structure's gonna look. Final. I'm trying to just gauge the relative distance between the tree and a true structure, which I don't see down now. So it's hard to understand it.
I imagine if the tree were to fall, it probably could hit the structure.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
At this point, we don't believe the tree is in jeopardy of falling. We don't remove it prematurely.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I think what Brooks was saying, there's two retaining walls there, and but you can't see it from this picture, but from the your other picture. You see, there's two retaining walls, and so it's just actually there's another one back towards the tree. So you have the retaining wall. At least what I saw, you had a retaining wall, and then the hill that goes up to that tree. And you did say in your report that if you remove the tree, if you remove the trunk or the stump of the tree, that hill would be unstable. And when I was looking at it, I thought if you just I hadn't even thought about, that kind of removal, but I saw that tree wasn't there, that whole hill looked unstable.
Are you saying that the tree is
holding the hill,
Well,
holding.
I think it could be looked at from two different perspectives,
Yeah.
because the weight of the tree, if it was saturated and it was wind blowing, there could be the tree could go down. And that's always a possibility, but the tree at this point is.
Well, I
still-
know the tree could go down, when I'm asking, could the hill go down without the tree?
I don't believe so, but we'd want to leave the stump to have as many roots in the ground for erosion control.
Susie, any questions of staff?
Yeah, just a couple. The tree doesn't look like it's in real good shape. I mean, it looks, you said it's in fair shape, but it doesn't look like it, when you stand there looking at it, it doesn't look real healthy. And then you just mentioned that, when they cut the roots, that's a problem. As they've cut the roots, is that gonna contribute to the health of the tree, the tree not being healthy, or?
The tree is a pine tree that's not been trimmed for probably 30 years. So there is some dead needles in it, a lot of pine cones. That to me, the tree looks like a normal healthy tree that hasn't been trimmed regularly. But as far as when the roots are cut, it would be worse if the roots were cut on the backside of the tree. They're kind of holding the tree more, but there's proper roots on the front of the tree. Any root cuts that you do make will increase the potential for a tree to fail.
Okay. On the staff report, it says under tree maintenance, annual fireweed safety abatement requirements. What does that mean?
That means that there's a 20-foot area behind the property line that is maintained. And the only thing that will get under that tree by the city is to remove anything on the ground.
Around the tree, but they're not actually maintaining the tree.
No. I don't believe the tree's been maintained for a long time. It's like a tree in the forest, and most forests don't get maintained.
Okay. And then in the application that we got, it's something like part of the tree is dead, causing a higher fire hazard. Therefore, the city should remove this before there is a problem. Was there any discussion of this? This is not the city removing it, it would be the resident, right?
The resident asked the city to remove it.
So the city would take on the cost of removing the tree.
The resident asked, and I did not, I told him he needed to submit an application to the Parklands Committee because I don't remove trees prematurely.
Okay.
And I didn't see any safety risk with the tree, and I don't see a fire issue with it. Unless every pine tree is dangerous.
Okay. But if we were to approve the removal of the tree, would the city take on that cost, or would
So this would be an application that the applicant had turned in, and that would be his cost
Okay.
to include the payment to the tree bank.
All right. And so in your opinion, the tree is not a fire hazard? And there's no fire. He says here the applicant indicates that the tree is a fire hazard. And if the tree were to fail, it'll damage the structure being built. But
I would agree if the tree fell and fell down, that it could damage the structure, but I wouldn't call it a fire hazard.
okay.
Most of the city would be a fire hazard. This is a fire hazard.
All right. No questions.
Carl, the project calls to build up a building right next to the tree, correct? That's my understanding.
Not where the outside wall is, it's where the basketball hoop is. That looks like it's going to be some kind of a garage with a roof on it.
Okay, and when that's built up, that's not gonna just directly abut the tree, is it?
No, the tree's not above that. It does cross the property line, but it's not above the structure.
All right. It's certainly not a very attractive tree to look at. It doesn't look like much of a loss, but at the same time, it doesn't look like the conditions for cutting it down exist either.
We have many unattractive trees in the city. And I try to direct the city's money to the right thing and not trim trees for safety reasons and not aesthetic reasons.
Understood. All right, any
I
more
have-
questions of staff?
I do have one go back on, so that retaining wall to the tree, where is their property line? After that
Yeah.
retaining wall?
You may be able to,
Oh, right there.
so you see the stake that's up there way on the slope? It lines up with the outside of that wall. If you look underneath it's kind of hard to see. Up near the greenery at the top, there's a survey stake. And so that survey stake, when you look at it, lines up where the wall was built. But the wall was not supposed to be built there unless there was a change in the plan that we see. It was supposed to come out, like I showed you in
On the
the
curve.
So the red line is where the wall is supposed to be, and the orange line is where it looks like the wall was built straight and it made a diagonal. It wasn't,
But it's all their property. It was built on.
it's all their property, yes.
It just wasn't,
There is
you
no
weren't expecting.
close to the wall into the tree. We had cut into the slope to put the wall in, but now there's a retaining wall there that's been lots of cement, lots of
Lots of
steel. And so now the slope is being retained by the retaining wall.
Carl, Ms. Rossick asked you this already, but I just want to clarify. So what did building the wall further out and closer to the tree do to the tree for its long-term health?
I think the only impacts are going to be stability.
Okay.
I don't think
Is that a
there's gonna be a whole lot of health deterioration, but it's hard to say since we never saw how many roots they took out.
So you're saying there could be a stability issue based on the fact that they did cut some of the roots out to build that wall?
It could increase the potentials of an instability in the future.
All right, thanks. Any other questions of staff? All right, we seem to have Mr. Rigg, one speaker on this issue. And go ahead, you've got 3 minutes, right?
5.
You're for the applicant, so
Yep.
you can have 5 minutes.
I think I'd like to wait till the presentation's up. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alan Rigg. I'm assisting Eric Rusamine and his wife with this project. I think when you see the graphics today, it'll answer a lot of the questions you had, and I think it's going to be a very easy decision. Next slide, please. Eric and his wife are in the middle of an expansion of the home. You can see the green is the home. So where the basketball court is, that's the bottom level of the home. The yellow star is where the trunk of the tree is. The yellow outline, that is the outline of the tree. They are concerned with the potential failure of the tree, the interference with their ability to build their home, and the fire risk. Next slide, please. The tree is perched on a knoll that has been eroding over time. I'm not aware of any cutting of those roots. I wasn't involved in the project at that time. Could it have been done? I don't know, but the situation is the situation at this point. The concrete block wall in front of it, that's the rear wall, and the wall in front of it is the wall of the home. Next slide, please. A closer view shows how the base of the trunk is against the vertical edge of the hill and has no support in front of it. Next slide, please. So hopefully this will really clear things up. The tree appears to be failing and is leaning at the yellow line from the photo that we took. That's the trunk of the tree. And I've always been taught that the top of the tree towards the top shows, is it leaning? Is it in failure, or did it lean initially and then eventually grew up vertically? This tree appears in failure. To build the building even at the red line, much of it would need to be removed. Probably half the tree would be removed. And so it looks like I would call this an extremely hazardous tree that's in failure. that's, it's gonna eventually damage the building. Final picture of the tree, next slide, please. Final picture of the tree would ask for the committee to find this tree to be a hazard and have it removed with the city's tree contractor. If the committee finds the tree to be safe, we would ask for your approval to remove it. From this photo and the one before, where the tree's leaning at a 45-degree angle and into the building line, I think it would be hard to find that this tree is safe. That would conclude my remarks, and I would ask for your approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Rick. All right, do we have any other speakers from the public about agenda item number 1? Didn't receive any cards, so committee discussion.
I agree that while the tree is, it's a little gangly visually, didn't appear to be, unhealthy or unsafe, could benefit perhaps from some trimming to clean it up visually and maybe decrease any chance of it, dropping a branch or something on the lawn. That was my observation.
And any thoughts
Um,
on this one?
I would agree with Brooks. I thought the tree was like a tree you would see in the woods, like Carl was saying. Actually, I was more concerned that the retaining wall was gonna be able to hold up the hill that it was built for. Because that, in the one picture, if that tree wasn't there, I don't know, I thought there wasn't much else holding up the hill, which was like 6 or 7, 8 feet above it, above the retaining wall. Anyway, I thought the tree was fine. Now that I know that the house doesn't get built to that second retaining wall, I didn't see any problem.
I don't think the tree really adds anything. I mean, it was pointed out in the staff report, it doesn't add anything to the character of the area. It's behind the house. Nobody really sees a tree. We have a lot of trees in the city for sure. We have a lot of trees in the forest. I think granting this application, it doesn't do anything to the makeup of the area if we take the tree down. Trimming it, that's fine, but you're just gonna have the same problem in so many years when it's, when it grows back. And why take the risk that if something happens and the trees fall or come down or the roots get worse, it just doesn't seem like it's worth the risk. So I would be in favor of removing the tree.
If Carl could put up the picture of the parkland, there's only a few trees up there.
Right? But what he showed was who really sees
Well,
the
I
tree.
mean, this isn't a view thing, this is
I'm not saying it's a view thing either,
but
but
I'm just saying there's only a few trees up there.
there's trees everywhere. I mean, there's trees all over the
So
place.
in that parkland, there was only a few.
And again, if you go back to, okay, you're gonna trim it, but then you're gonna have to trim it again, and
Well,
the
I just-
resident's gonna have to trim it again and again and again, and it doesn't really, I don't think it really adds anything to the makeup, and that was pointed out in the staff, where it doesn't really change the character of the area.
But Carl made the point that he thinks it's a healthy tree. It's not a risk. So I don't think it's all unfair to say it's going to be a risk from now on by leaving it there. It's not, it's been there for 30
So
years.
the tree may not be very stable going forward with the roots being cut. That's what was stated. So there is a possibility that that the tree could, I mean, you look at it, you look at the pictures and how the tree is leaning and where the house goes to, it could be a risk. So again, if it was a tree in the, right in the front, something that was adding to the character as we talk about in the area, I think I wouldn't be leaning towards that, but it doesn't. There's a lot of trees in the city, and it's one less tree the city has to worry about.
Yeah, this is a little tricky. I mean, I went right up to it and saw the whole outlay and looked at the tree. It's just not a tree that anyone can see. And when you do see it, it's really not a very attractive looking tree. But on the other hand, they may be in this situation because they overbuilt their wall, as Carl has pointed out, and gotten too close to the tree. So they've created a problem that we now have to solve. So I think it's kind of a tough one. I come down really agreeing with Susie that I don't have a problem removing this tree because it doesn't affect anybody. Who knows what will happen down the line? It could be a problem. It's not worth trimming. It doesn't provide really anything except it's in the way of a project. But and that I'm a little torn on that because that's not really the basis of the petition. But overall, just seeing the tree in person, it really doesn't affect anything to take it out. And therefore, why not avoid a problem down the road? That's where I come down on it too. So it sounds like we're gonna be maybe split on this.
I'm just surprised that you would, I mean, they built next to a park, they built next to a parkland. And parklands don't always look great, they're not kept up. But that's where they chose to build. And so aesthetically, it doesn't look right. I mean, you're gonna remove a tree because aesthetically it doesn't look right?
No, I don't think that's specifically what we said. We said it doesn't add anything to the character, which is pointed out in the staff
It's a
report.
parkland.
Right, but
You have a bold or an unplanted hill there. To me, that was more of a jarring look than that tree. I kind of like the tree
I
myself.
guess we're gonna agree to
I
disagree.
mean,
I don't agree with you on that.
who's planting on the hill?
Well, you don't have to have a tree in every single area. The place, you don't have to have
Been there a
a tree.
long time and I don't see a reason to remove a tree that's not.
Potentially could fall on top of somebody's
Any tree could
house.
potentially fall.
No, that's not true, Ann. Not every tree can fall. Not every tree is sitting in a position like that, so.
In this case,
Brooks, Brooks, I want to hear from you. Can convince me to save this tree, please.
well, I think it's a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That is, I agree with Ann that it is parklands, it is a little scraggly. It is the character of the parklands. It's not aesthetically beautiful, shouldn't have to be beautiful. And just removing the tree because we can, I think is the wrong reason. Particularly when we can't make a compelling argument for a tree being unsafe. The roots on the back, as Carl pointed out, are more important to its future, not the front. The wall is too close. I kind of agree that it's kind of created somewhat of a problem by placing their structure that close to a natural environment. So I'm gonna think with Ann about, let's keep it unless we have some no reason not to.
All right, any further discussion?
Here we come.
I'll let you know. Any further discussion on the committee? All right. And you want to make a motion?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I'll make a motion that we deny the petition and we keep the tree. For PC 58324, that we deny the application and we do not remove the county tree.
Do I have a second?
I would second that, but can I ask sort of an amendment to that? That we might offer the homeowner the option to trim the tree on parklands, kind of to clean it up a little bit aesthetically. If they're concerned, maybe there's a branch sticking out too far, or something that might ease their concern. That would get to the homeowner, you wouldn't have to do that, but that would be an option for us keeping the tree.
I would ask again, as I did last week, is that a friendly amendment to the motion made? And the maker of the motion can answer.
Yes.
All right, so now the motion includes the amendment to allow the homeowner to trim the tree. But how is the?
For a permit.
With a permit. Okay. And you second that motion?
Yes, I do. Yes, I second that.
All right. Shall we have a vote?
Committee Member McKinney? Committee Member McKinney?
In favor, yes.
Committee Member Nye?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rossick?
No,
Chair Cooper?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is PC 584-24, application to top one hedge of trees located adjacent to 1501 Via Lopez. Do we have a staff report?
This is a request to top one hedge of trees to 32 feet in height. It is adjacent to, just to orientate you, where the green field is where the house was going to be built a couple years ago, and the oval circle is around the hedge. So the trees are located to 1501 Via Lopez, and the applicant is at 1412 Via Fernandez. The main viewing area, according to the applicant, is the living room, or this area right here that I've got circled. And the distance from the tree to the hedge is 180 feet. The scenic view, as defined by the tree management policy, is the ocean and the community landscapes. These are mature trees, and at the time that this was first turned in, they were exceeding 43 feet. They presently are at 36 feet as an average. Some of the history is that in January of 2021, PC 547-20 was received. Scott Martin, the agent for Lynn and Eddie Chin of 1412 Via Fernandez, requested approval to annual top trim and top the one hedge of trees adjacent to 1501 Via Lopez. The hedge is comprised of both public and private trees. The only place that can be trimmed is the first 12 and a half feet of the public trees. Public trees can be trimmed to a greater extent than the 12 feet. But if they happen to be further, the private trees, only the part that extends into the public right of way would be included in this application. The trees are 180 feet from the house, and we're approximately 42 feet tall. The resident of 1501 Via Lopez was concerned with privacy impacts from the uphill homes on Via Cornell, Paseo Cresta, and Via Fernandez. This is a picture from his balcony, and you can pretty much, or this is where I took a picture from his balcony, and that's where he is concerned about privacy impacts. In the last meeting, the committee members were concerned with privacy impacts, but could not quantify the amount or determine the effect to the private trees behind the hedge. In that meeting, it was approved to trim the tree, all the public trees, and all the parkway area, the 12 and a half feet, to 32 feet above grade, require the trimming to be performed in spring, require the urban forester to direct the first topping with a tree trimming permit from the city, and require the applicant to return to the Parklands Committee without a fee for review before annual trimming can be considered. So this is the present tree hedge, and it's from the main viewing area, and what's in front of me is a pool that's covered. we measured the height of the tree at 35 feet. And this is where 32 feet would be. On the other end, it was 36 feet, 8 inches. And this is where 32 feet is. This is from the balcony, and you can see that there really will not be any privacy impacts. And in fact, in the middle of the hedge, it was 30 feet. So there will be no trimming in this middle of the hedge. It will only be on the ends. There are a number of options available to the committee tonight. And we would add one thing is that spring is probably not a good time to trim this tree for bird nesting season. We would want to change that to somewhere in January or February. And we would recommend that there be a bird survey performed by an arborist or biologist before the trimming to make sure there's no nest in the tree. The resident had shown me a picture of a hawk that was in the tree, and the last time the hedge was scheduled to be trimmed a long time ago, we found nests and we put the trimming off until they were not active. And that would complete the step.
All right, thanks, Carl. Questions for Carl and staff?
I have one on a letter that came in on the 20th, and it's a resident requesting, I think you might have seen this, Carl, residents requesting a large tree whose trunk is clearly seen be removed. We can't really consider that because it's not the applicant's, on the applicant's.
We can't consider anything more than what was agendized.
Okay,
And so if removal was something that was going to be considered, it would be another application.
okay, and then she also pointed out because the overgrowth, the stop sign on Via Fernandez cannot be seen. Can we trim so that it can be seen?
George, the owner of 1501 Via Lopez, is going to have the trimming done, but we would want to have, anytime someone's going to trim the hedge, that the whole hedge would be trimmed for that stop sign. And to do that kind of work on this curve, traffic control is going to be necessary.
Okay. So is that yes, we can do that, or?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, those are my.
So the current application is not requesting permission to do annual trimming. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is, because it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Does it? Is it annual?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I missed that one. I beg your pardon. My other question, maybe this goes later. There's two different types of trees in that, at least two types of trees in that hedge. There's a ficus, and then there's a leafier, either
Podocarpus?
yeah, whatever it is. And that's the one that's really, doing all the blockage of the stop sign. And it's not ficus, because ficus is growing much higher. It's really that other tree that's visibly blocking the stop sign from just up the street. So maybe that comes later in the discussion.
It's my observation that the ficus trees were the most egregious. And the podocarpus trees are not something that really is as vigorous as the ficus trees growing. The big giant ficus tree, that's a ficus tree there.
Right, but if you stand on the street, up kind of to the right of the red circle and look towards the stop sign, the foliage that's visually blocking oncoming traffic from seeing that sign is this other type of tree. It's not the ficus. I can tell by the different type of foliage.
And so what we're suggesting now is that everything in that parkway be lifted up to 8 feet so that the sign will be visible, even though there is a curve that makes it very difficult to see the stop sign.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
I do have a follow-up. So it was back in 2021 that they first had the application and it was approved unanimously. And I just was kind of curious, what happened, they were approved to do an annual trim, did they,
They,
when was the last trim?
there was only one trim because they were required to come back to the Parklands Committee to rediscuss it because the Parklands Committee was concerned that there may be some privacy impacts for 1501 B Lopez. So this is their first trip back.
4 years later. Oh, got it. So there's no trim,
Approximately, yes.
no trim.
I was kind of surprised that the hedge hadn't grown that much
Yeah,
in that period of time. That's why we measured it twice.
oh,
Because I measured the first time and they said, you know, the old rule of measure twice, cut once.
I don't know,
So
don't know that rule.
Carl, what's the height that you would recommend topping it off at?
you know, I don't think I would change the request. It certainly looks like the trees could be trimmed a little lower, but that would certainly be something that would have to be re-agendized.
The request was 30 feet?
It was to trim it to the same height as it was trimmed before, the 32 feet.
32. Okay, thanks. Suzie, any
Yeah.
questions?
I have one. Carl, you pointed out that there was one section of that hedge that was below the 32 feet. Kind of in the middle. And I was kind of wondering, well, how high is that? Just to kind of get a different number here, from
We
30,
measured it at 30 feet.
about 30 feet.
Yeah.
So conceivably, you could go to 30 feet in the interest of making it look all the same. I mean, conceivably.
I believe you guys, the Parklands Committee could reduce the height to 30 feet, but the request was 32.
I got it.
I don't believe there would be any privacy impacts by lowering it a little bit.
All right, any other questions of staff? Okay, do we have any public comments? Who want to comment? Okay, and come on up, sir. I'm looking for his card. Tell us your name, sir.
My name is George Zhao.
Okay.
I'm the resident of 1501 Villa Lopez.
George, did you fill out a card? I know
No,
you-
I don't, I didn't.
Okay.
I know the procedure.
I know you're the applicant. You can do that after.
Thank you. I will.
Yeah, go ahead. She's gonna reset the clock, and as the applicant, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
That's a long time.
I have two major concerns.
Hold on. Let us get the clock set.
Well, the first concern is the privacy.
Okay, this
It does affect my privacy.
okay, so I misspoke, sir. So I know you're not the applicant, so it's 3 minutes. So hold on 1 second. All right, go ahead.
The first concern is it does affect my privacy if you go down the trees. I have 4 bedrooms upstairs. 3 of them are facing the parkland, with balcony facing the parkland. My second concern is, as Mr. Morris the first mentioned, there were hawks living in the parkland trees before. But they all disappeared and never come back after they trimmed the tree last time because they trimmed too much. Also, I realized that the nearby George Island field has been seriously infested by buffaloes since they trimmed the tree because the hawks left. So to better preserve the nature, I'm wondering if the committee can limit their trimming frequency, not every year, but maybe every other year or something, less frequently. Thank you for your consideration. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on item number 2? All right, committee discussion. Dan, what do you? Susie, what do you?
I think we should approve it.
And I'm in agreement, we've approved it before, and it made sense, and we approved it. There's a certain precedent there, and it makes sense, it's obviously ficus, and metacarpus grow fast, and they get out of control, and it makes sense, and I know that's why we approved it before, so I'm in agreement. Any other
Well,
thoughts?
and the ficus, I mean, that whole hedge of trees, that, as I understand it, was never permitted. They were just planted without the city's knowledge or cooperation, so that should at least be part of our thinking. You know, it's there, but should it be there at all? And how should we proceed?
You have any comments?
I'm thinking what he just said.
Yeah, I am too, are you saying you want to cut the whole thing down?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the fact that they were planted without the city's involvement, it takes away some of the opportunity for the folks at Villa Lopez to complain about privacy. If they, and I don't know if it's who did the original planting, might have been many years ago. But that they just should factor into how we think about the whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, this was approved before, I understand their, I mean, I don't know what came first, the hedge or the house.
Or Hawks?
Anyway, it was approved before, they just took a long time coming back for annual approval. I do think your insight that it would be more even if it was 30 feet, since the lowest is 30 feet. But I'm kind of curious, Carl, do you know what the first trim was? Was it really 32 feet or was it 30 feet or less?
It was 32 feet,
It was 32 feet.
but there was parts of the hedge that still weren't.
They still weren't at 32 feet. Got it. Okay. Well, okay, so it was 32 feet and there were parts that weren't even at that time, so they didn't care. So I'm not caring either. So I would go with your recommendation to annually top the hedge of trees located in the parkway and do it in the January time. I mean in this. You're saying in the spring?
That was previous to consideration for the bird nesting season.
So you
Best time to trim trees
is
would
now,
be January, February.
January. So you have it in your options. Okay.
Well, Susie, do you want to make a motion?
So we'll change that to January.
I don't think we need to set forth the date.
Well, I'm just saying, let's not say spring then.
I want to go back if we can. I found it interesting to learn about the fate of the hawks, if in fact the previous trimming drove the hawks away. I'm somewhat sympathetic to that argument of let's at least keep the birds in mind, and maybe perhaps a buy-in, and not every year, but every other year trimming might be a way to end up on this one.
I think that George Allen Field has many issues. I mean, they've had many issues on that field. We've
We're
had
just approving-
applications.
Yeah, I mean, we're just approving the ability for them to trim it annually if they want to. That's what we're doing.
There's,
Yeah, today's business is sufficient for the day.
You might consider, as long as, if you make the motion to include a survey, either by an arborist or a biologist, that the birds wouldn't be impacted if they weren't present. And so then they would have their option to do it once a year annually at whatever time the birds are not active. And the best time to trim is February, closest to spring, but still not in the bird nesting season.
and we're only trimming the ficus hedge, we're not trimming the tree, right?
In a previous application, the eucalyptus was asked to be thinned, and that still can be thinned, but not topped.
You don't say that here either.
Okay, I'm going to move that we recommend approval of PC 58-24 to annually top one hedge of trees located in the parkway adjacent to 1501 Via Lopez. And along with that, we'd like to include a bird survey to determine the impact that the trimming will have on the birds that nest and live within those hedges.
I second the motion. Shall we have a vote?
Well, so in the recommendation, it also has required that it be elevated to 8 feet above the grade for the stop sign. Are you gonna add that?
I don't think that needs to be part of the
Well, that
motion.
was in the recommendation.
It's in the recommendation, but I don't think you need to read the whole thing, but if you,
Oh, you don't have to read that.
I don't think I have to.
You can recommend, as it says, alternative direction.
No, what she's saying is to put in there about the whole 8 feet above the grade for visibility of stop sign. I don't think I need to be that specific in the recommendation, because that's what you guys are gonna do. Correct?
I think we would appreciate a more specific recommendation, because if someone was
Okay,
going to save
got it.
money,
okay, so I'm gonna alter that to approve PC 58-24 to recommend approval of PC 584-24 to annually top one hedge of trees located in the parkway adjacent to 1501 Via Lopez to 32 feet in height. Require the hedge to be trimmed in January, February with a no-fee tree trimming permit. Require the hedge to be elevated to 8 feet above the grade for the visibility of the stop sign. Require traffic control. Also include a bird survey to determine the impact on the birds that nest in the hedge.
And I'll second that motion. Let's have a vote.
Committee Member McKinney,
Yes.
Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rossick,
Yes,
Chair Cooper,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Let's move to agenda item number 3 tonight, PC 585-24, application to remove 3 queen palms located in the parkway adjacent to 2116 Paseo del Mar. Do we have a staff report?
the request tonight is to remove these 3 queen palms. They aren't the designated street tree. The Kentia palm is the designated street tree, and the Kentia palm you can see in the lower left-hand corner. The reason for the application, location is 216, and the applicant the tree location is the same as the applicant's. And the reason for the application is to install a new driveway, a new standard driveway. The tree age, they're mature. Tree health is fairly good. The maintenance that's been performed on the trees has been performed by the maintenance, by the resident over the years. And there was a previous application, PC 558-21, to remove the queen palms, which was denied. In considering non-related applications, the committee must seek to strike a reasonable balance between preservation and enhancement of mature trees, the protection of privacy, and the preservation and enhancement of public safety for each property owner. In 2021, at the beginning of construction, the parkway in front of this home was clear of vegetation except for 3 queen palms. A large and valuable mature Senegal date palm, Phoenix recordata, was removed during the clearing. This is what a Senegal date palm looks like, but it's not the one that was removed. November of 2021, the application PC 558-21 was reviewed. The application requested to remove the remaining 3 queen palms from view enhancement. The application was denied, and restoration for the removed Senegal date palm was required. The restoration requirement was to plant 4 specimen Kentia palms, the designated street tree, with 10 feet of brown trunk on each palm. These were planted. Unfortunately, there was no permanent poles, so they kind of ended up in the wrong location, or possible problematic location. Construction continued and eventually the curvy non-standard driveways were required to be removed and replaced with standard driveways.
Sorry, Carl, can you advance the slide so we can see that?
So new pilasters were installed on the property line which determined the new location of the driveway. They have to be able to get onto private property, and there's no other way on this side other than between those two pilasters. And as you can see, the driveway or the opening is 13 feet wide. So a permit was to install the driveways was requested by Finley's Tree and Land Care. The location of one of the palms, though, was too close. In fact, it was in the footprint of the driveway, and the permit could not be issued. They issued one permit to build the driveway on the other side, but this one, they said they had to get permission from the Parklands Committee before they could do anything in the driveway. And if you draw a straight as line as I could draw with what I had, this looks like where the palm is located relative to the new driveway. Unfortunately, as you can see, the Kenthia palm in the front was planted very, very close, 2.5 feet, which could be problematic. The good thing is, though, it's a new tree that was in a container, and so they won't have roots that are too far advanced into the soil, but by the time the driveway is installed, it's going to be very close to the driveway. Finley's Tree and Land Care was contracted to provide an arborist report to evaluate the 3 queen palms. Lack of water and inappropriate trimming can cause the trunks to have different diameters due to stress and reduced photosynthesis. The arborist report identifies where inappropriate methods were used to trim the palms. These methods left several spike marks in the trunks and an exterior slice mark from presumably a machete. The report indicates the palms have symptoms, not signs, symptoms of pink rot, which can weaken or kill queen palms. The report does not confirm the presence of pink rot, and the forester did not observe the presence of the fungus. Additionally, pink rot can be treated with a fungicide that's not too far advanced. No risk assessment was provided by the arborist, but the palms are not currently at risk. The Parklands shall respect the neighborhood character and should not make a recommendation that will result in significantly altering the unique feeling of the particular neighborhood. The character of this neighborhood is palm trees. There's multiple species of palms that fill the area beyond the Kenthia palm. Privacy and screening of the structures is not affected one way or the other. The queen palms don't provide much screening for privacy. This committee shall consider the extent reasonably practical the preservation and enhancement of public safety. The driveway is a little bit problematic to be able to be built with the palm tree in the way. The only way that it could be built is by making the driveway 10 foot wide instead of 13 feet wide, pushing it away from the palm tree. That would kind of not match the other side though. The queen palm is not the designated street tree for Paseo del Mar. So this is, if they move the driveway, what it would look like. It would be only 10 feet wide. And it would come next to the palm tree. When I was on site, we noticed that there was these large box arbutus marina trees that we've told the landscape architect that could not be planted unless the Parklands Committee was to approve these. Somehow they were delivered, and they seem to be in a place where they want to plant them. But tonight is not able to consider that because it was not part of the agenda. So if they want to plant Arbutus marina trees, they would have to come back to the committee to get permission to do that. So there are a number of standard conditions included, and the options for the Parklands Committee. There's a number of them there to either remove 3 queen palms, recommend denial, or provide alternative direction that would complete the staff report.
Right, Carl, so the one palm that's very close to the driveway, can they build the driveway with that tree there? You're saying if they did it 10 feet wide only instead of 13, is that?
They could build the driveway 10 foot wide if they were pushing it to the opposite side and give that palm enough room to become unstable. Palm trees form new roots every year from the base of the tree. So there wouldn't be a risk of it falling over because new roots will form every year.
What about lining the driveway up with access to the pilasters?
If it was lined up with the pilasters, then the tree would be in the driveway.
Right in the path?
Yes, it would have to be removed.
Okay. Quite any other questions from staff?
I've got a couple. Carl, I noticed that the right of way seems to be considerably deeper on Paseo Del Mar than other parts of PV. Is that correct?
Yes, there's probably over 30 feet of public right of way on the side of Paseo Del Mar, and there's 100 feet or 90 feet on the other side.
And then, is it common for the city to provide any kind of irrigation in those right of ways that might, or is that up to the homeowner?
The parkway is adjacent to anybody's property is always the responsibility of the resident to maintain, irrigate, beautify, keep weed free.
So we don't know if there was an irrigation system there before they got torn out.
There was, but it's long since gone.
Right.
The demo.
Okay.
But they will be putting a new landscaping in and they'll be re-irrigating the area.
Okay. And when they installed the pilasters, they were aware of the positions of the trees, correct?
I
mean,
don't,
visually they knew what they were doing, or they didn't know what they were doing, but they can't say, we didn't know there was a tree there.
I think this became apparent when they wanted to put the driveway in. They had a plan they built for the pilasters, but it wasn't considering the palm trees of the right of way, the parkway. It wasn't until they built pilasters and they decided, and then they know they had to put a driveway in, that the realization was the tree was not just too close, it was in the footprint of the driveway.
Okay, and my last question, all 3 trees have evidence of pink rot, you said, I think.
No,
No, sir.
I didn't say that. I said that the arborist report indicated there were symptoms. Arborists use them for signs, something tangible, and I don't see any pink rot, and I see healthy palms,
Okay.
regardless of how little attention they've been given, and the spike marks and the machete marks don't affect the health of the tree, or the safety of the tree, but holes in trees could let fungus get in and take hold, and so it is a risk, but presently there's no pink rot that I can observe.
Okay. So my question really was, if those trees were treated with some kind of herbicides or fungicides, that would kind of protect them against future damage.
Well, they certainly could treat them with fungicides, but normally fungicides aren't used unless there's a sign that they're going after. Because fungicides are pretty indiscriminate and they kill most of the beneficial fungus in the soil also.
Right. but you're saying there's no evidence currently of that.
Like arborists say signs, that you actually find the fungus. Symptoms would be something that would lead you to believe that you needed to take a test to find out what it is. But there was no symptoms. I think the other arborist believes the trees are not doing too well, but from my eye, they look like they're doing fine.
Mhm. Okay. All right, thank you.
Suzie, any questions?
A couple of things on the front, you're saying they look real good, but on the staff report, under tree health, you said fair.
Only because of the spike marks and the machete marks and the undulating trunks.
Okay,
As far as the palm fronds, they're nice and green and healthy, and this is common in palms where they don't get water or they get over trimmed, that the trunks can form undulations. And there's many palms that are spiked to trim instead of using a bucket truck to trim them, and they don't die.
Okay.
But it is an area where fungus can enter the wounds because palms don't create new wood to seal the holes. They're a monocote.
all right, I was just curious why it was fair on there, which is very good. You don't have a photo coming from the street and looking at the entire house, do you? Like on the other side of the street? Because when you're standing in front of it, and you see how they've put those 3 new trees. I think it's 3 new trees or 4 new trees. It looks really good the way they've put those 4 new trees in. And you don't have that kind of photo where you can see them.
No, but when I was out there, I measured the trees and
I'm talking about the palm trees, the small palm trees, right? Are there 4 of those or?
the palm trees, the way they were planted, they're all a different distance from the driveway.
Okay,
So it wasn't planted like you would think it should be planted, that each palm tree should be 7 feet from the driveway or 6 feet from the driveway. They are all different dimensions, from 7 feet to 4 feet to 2.5 feet to 6 feet.
okay,
So they were not, when they put the palms in the ground, they were not really sure of where the driveway is
right.
going, I would imagine, because if they knew where the driveway would be, they would have placed them symmetrically.
Okay. It's just that when you're standing in front of it, looking at the way they planted the smaller palm trees, regardless of the driveway, it looks nice. I mean, it looks better than what it did before. They're making these improvements, and then those big trees that they want to put in, and they'll come back and ask for permission for. That's a whole different story, but at least that looks good. You mentioned that the arborist said that there's no risk assessment, but he believes the remaining queen palms diminish the landscape rather than enhance it. The 3 that are the big ones that are standing there, correct?
Yes, that's what the arborist indicated.
And if we don't approve removal of the tree, they would have to make the driveway smaller. So as you mentioned, it would be lopsided from the other side.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's all.
And Carl, we can also direct, if we, for example, were to agree to remove one of the 3, we could take further direction and require replanting of the street tree, another palm on the property.
There certainly is room for one more palm in the middle of all those. But it would need to be a larger palm with 10-foot of ground trunk to match.
And the street palm is a Kentian, right?
Yes.
All right, thanks. And any questions of staff?
You already talked to, it has to be a straight driveway, right? Can't be a curve.
That's the public works standards, yes. No curves.
Any more questions of staff? Okay, we do have some cards from the public. And do we have the applicant here? Okay, Mr. Busick. So he's gonna have 5 minutes. All right. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so there's a little bit of history to how the driveway even came to be. The original plan was to just remove and replace for what they had, which in the next slide, you can see is you gotta make it full screen.
I would like to know how to do that.
You'd have to hit to the right. This is the square button to the right. There you go. No, the one to the right,
Yeah.
the plus sign, I think we'll make it full screen. Right? Like that.
No, to the right of it.
Yeah, just kind of get back at it.
That one. There. So it's a little small, but anyways, it was originally this curved driveway. Their plan was to remove and replace for an eye for an eye, have the same curve, just update it from being pink concrete, which it currently is, to a more modern top cast finish with a more of a gray or beige tinge to it. So that was obviously declined because the standard is for straight, which is what led us to the design of having a straight driveway, which is the next slide. The plan was approved to have this straight driveway by the city and by the art jury. So the pilasters were installed per the plan. So the location of the driveway wasn't dictated out because of the pilasters. Pilasters were put in per plan. So it wasn't until after that we discovered that one palm tree was going to be in the line. In my picture here, you can see that's the edge of the driveway, which is going to come to the edge of the palm. So again, yeah, the original curved driveway would have allowed all the space for the palms to exist. But because we had to change that, it's not one in jeopardy. Since I've been on site doing the construction, we've been hand watering the trees, and they haven't required any pruning in the year 2024 so far. So next slide. 2021, the Senegal date palm was removed. That was unknowing to the owners of the protocols. And as Carla mentioned, that the Parklands committee requested that they plant or upgrade their Kentia palms, the designated street tree, to be 10-foot bare trunk versus a 24-inch box, which is much smaller. Those trees have been planted. So the next slide, that was the Senegal palm that was removed from the front. Next slide, please. So the queen palm removal, one of the queen palms is in the way of the city approved and required driveway. All 3 palms per the arborist report that we had indicates that they're under stress, underperforming due to its improper pruning, water intake over its lifespan. So that could have been from years ago. Presents symptoms of pink rot per the arborist report. Many signs being the shape of the trunk. It's irregular diameter throughout. It's got a much thinner diameter at the base of the canopy. Pink rot can increase the risk of tree failure, which can also turn into, which I might need Carl's help on the pronunciation, labiopsis, which can cause the palm tree to fold in half, so essentially the top falling off. And in addition to that, the trunk can bleed from the small cracks in the trunk, leaving the trunk to become hollow as well. And in those pictures, you can see more of the gash marks and the irregular shape that Carl also already showed. Next slide. So not just do we need to take the palm tree down to put the driveway in for the plan. To take those down, we're also saying we're not willing to just like leave it barren. We'd love to put these 3 60-inch arbutus trees in its place, at least for a trade of 3 trees for 3 trees, in addition to paying the fee to the tree bank, which is $500 per tree, totaling $1,500. The trees that we have out here, again, are 60-inch box, the tallest one being 18 feet tall from top of box. So they're pretty large size trees. We believe that these types of trees match the other two that are on the client's property. And so it would only enhance the landscape.
Okay, some music, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I think we got the gist of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of other cards for this item. And we have Julie Kolich. Are you still here?
I am Judy, and I just like
Hello.
to ask, hi. I would just like to ask for your help to move my husband and I into this home. The process has been going on for a long time. Like a lot of people redoing and remodeling, it's an arduous psychologically process, which you know better than I just learned. This process has been going on for various reasons, health reasons, etc., for many years. And so I came to ask you and say that we really appreciate your help here. The palm tree, we did get the plans drawn, so we don't know what we're doing in terms of doing plans. So when we got the drawing, we thought it would be okay. And Carl explained to me the other day that it's too close to the driveway and that I didn't understand that the roots, as Carl explained, go underneath the driveway. So we'd like to ask you for the right to take that palm tree down. I know it's not absolutely necessary to take the other two down, but we'd like to do that and plant the 3 trees in a row. And we've talked with our neighbor, and I also bought that house because I wanted to have a view. Those trees, my understanding is that when you put them in the ground, they're not going to hit the balcony level. And we brought them to show the neighbor, so that's why they're there, so that the neighbor could see on our right-hand side whether it would block their view. And we asked their permission and to show them. So anyway, we would like to plant these trees, and I know it's not at this time to ask you for that, but please consider removing the one palm tree so I can get my car in the driveway. Thank you very much for your.
Okay, thank you. And we have one other speaker card, Mr. Peterson.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members, Carl. Charles Peterson, 35-year resident, author of the tree management policy, along with Carl Moritz and Alan Rake, Parklands committee chairman for 7 years. I've known the Koliches for 25 years. Our daughters went to school together. I know them to be fine and upstanding citizens of this city. I know that they've been put through hell by the planning committee, the planning commission, and by the art jury. This process of rebuilding this new home on Paseo Del Mar has dragged out for 7 years, and now it's being held up by one palm tree. I'm just very annoyed. This should be an easy decision for the committee. They're doing their best to comply with all kinds of arcane city regulations, rules, processes, and policies. They've been backed into a corner, and it's not right to have one palm tree hold up $1 million renovation of a home. I don't know whose fault it was. I haven't looked into what happened at the planning board or at the Homes Association. But it turns out that these palm trees need to go so that they can finish this project and move in. It's been 6 years. It's not right. They were told where to put this driveway by the planning commission and by the association. We have 20,000 trees in the city. Since 2005, the residents have asked the Parklands Committee to remove about 250 trees. This process of rebuilding homes in the community should not be held up. My position is that we need to renew the urban forest, and we need to start doing it now. Each of these applications is a discrete request by residents to help our forest. It's not an invitation to say, no, don't remove our trees. It can't continue like this. Anyway, the Pecoliches have agreed to replant a bunch of new trees. They've already put in 4. They've agreed to pay $500 more for the tree bank and to pay to take out these palms. So I would urge you to grant this application, take out the palms, and let them put in the new trees that are already on site. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peterson. All right, discussion of staff. Oh,
Mr. Chairman, I think at this time, it may be helpful to clarify, because a couple, actually, I think all 3 speakers spoke about an approved plan. In my research, the plan was submitted with a permit for the southern driveway, and it was approved with a note that there's a need to confirm with the city public works whether that driveway on the north can fit where the tree is. I do believe it's an honest mistake. I got an approved plan, I guess I can do that. But the condition did ask for that coordination that didn't happen before the pilasters and the driveway were set.
okay, great. That's a nice clarification. I appreciate that. Comments from staff, from the committee. Susie, I like calling you Ann.
No, I appreciate what the homeowner's doing. I appreciate it probably was an honest mistake. When I look at the home, and I walk by the home almost every day, and I see the improvements they're making in the putting in the smaller trees and that, I'm in favor of removing the 3 palm trees. I think with what they're going to do with the landscaping and everything, it's going to be a vast improvement over removing 1 tree, having 2 trees standing there and trying to make that all work with what they have. So that's where I stand.
Okay, Ann, any comments? Any thoughts?
Well, I believe too it was an honest mistake. I've been doing it for a long time, for 6 or 7 years. I said both. I mean, I think we denied this at one time. And so I don't remember why we denied it.
It was a view application. This one's not.
And there's no view being obstructed here. So I think that's why we maybe denied it. If you had a picture that looked across the street, there's a lot of these palms. There's a lot of vegetation in the houses across from them. I mean, this is a tough one. I mean, they just want to do the right thing. So I don't think this is enhancing their yard. I mean, the palms. I don't think it's enhancing their yard to keep the palms, but I mean, but the thing is, they are throwing us a little bit of a loop, because you go out there and you see the 3 palms, and then you see these four other trees, and it's like they've already made their plan, and maybe it just took them a while to come, the application to come before the Parklands. Do you know the history of that, Carl? I mean, have they talked to you about the other trees?
No.
And what do you think of the other trees?
But we can't talk about that.
Oh, well,
because
Are you referring to the arbutus or the three queen palms?
no, the new trees that in the boxes.
Arbutus marina is a beautiful tree, but it will get 30 feet plus.
That's what I thought.
And unless it was maintained at a low level regularly, the next door neighbor's view would be obliterated. And they've said they want to maintain them, but it certainly wasn't something that was posted or agendized to make a decision on planting them, but they're beautiful trees.
So anyway, what I guess I'm leaning towards is because that is not agendized. I would like them to get their driveway, so I guess I don't see a problem removing the one that's in the way, so they can just get along with their house. And also your recommendation to move the smaller palm. Well, I think you said to move that also, since it's a young palm that they just planted. I mean, not to remove
I
it, to
think,
move
I
it.
think that one, there's enough distance, it should be okay.
Oh, I thought you said you thought they should move it.
It's tight, but it should be okay.
Yeah,
So anyway, I'm leaning to at least removing the one for right now.
yeah, and I'm in agreement with you on that. I don't, they've got their pilasters already there. They've been working at this for a long time. They need their driveway, they need access. I don't have a problem with removing the one, the one palm tree that's in the way. So that's where I come down on it as well.
And not the three.
Not the
So
three.
you'd have the two palm trees and then the trees they want potentially when they come back, the trees they want to plant behind it.
I know, but we're not landscapers.
No, we're not, but that's what
That's not our job.
no, but that's what their arborist said. They believe that the remaining queen palms diminish the landscape rather than add to it.
But we don't.
What is it? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
It's, what I love about that whole neighborhood is kind of the random nature of the queen and other types of palms. To me, it's kind of like what I call belly high type place where you have, my South Pacific reference, sorry about that, but they are kind of random, and that's their charm. And so you sort of work with that and you build around it and you let the neighborhood maintain its character with those palms. I agree with Ann and Susie that obviously they made a mistake about placing their pilasters and not looking at the tree and they ought to get their driveway. So I would side with Ann on let's remove the one tree and leave the other two. And when they want to come back and talk about these other three trees, and I don't even know if other street trees, would they even be eligible for planting since it is right away?
You could, the last meeting, someone submitted an application for a change of designation on Via Pacheco. That would be the same thing.
Okay,
But they
so that could
don't,
happen.
it would be noticed so that the next door neighbor, if he had issues with it, could make his statements, and then if there was a need to condition it by limiting the height and having the resident, the cottages, maintain the trees at a certain height in perpetuity, then it would be done.
I think that's my own. Again, I'd recommend, irrigation system, but that's on the homeowner, so we won't discuss that. So
I can
keep the one tree.
make
Ann, would you like to make a motion?
a motion. Okay, so I'll make a motion on PC 585-24 to remove the one queen palm that's in the way of the driveway.
Well, I think what I would do is say that you're making a motion to partially grant and partially deny.
Right,
Yeah,
well, okay,
okay.
so to remove the one that's in the way and to deny that the other two,
And add the standard conditions.
and under the standard conditions.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
All right, we ready for a vote?
Committee member McKinney,
Yes.
committee member Nye,
Yes.
vice chair Rossett,
Yes,
chair Cooper,
Yes,
motion passes.
all right. Okay, well, that brings us to Via Acalones. And, looks like we have most of Via Acalones here tonight. So I'm gonna propose that we do something unusual here. I think we should simply take these last three items, all of which involve the same street, as one item.
No.
Okay. That doesn't meet with.
They're separate.
There's three applications.
All right, okay, well,
But they're
been
similar.
heard already.
Well, if we
All right, well, then let's
But
take,
if we get through the first one.
I doubt it, but let's take PC 586-24, application to remove 2 carob trees located in the parkway adjacent to 2213 Via Acalones, and plant and maintain annually the designated street tree at 13 feet. Carl, do we have a staff report?
Hold on a second, though. It says 588. Is it 588 or 586?
No, it's really 686.
It says 588. I
Um,
was asking you to be.
Okay, well, the slide's wrong. Or something's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, so there, yeah. Got confused then. Number 4 is what we're gonna do now, and that's 586-24. And so, Carl, what you have up,
It's wrong.
maybe,
No, so what happened?
it's actually, the report, it is the staff report for Richard Sullivan, correct?
That's correct.
All right, well, let's go ahead with it.
580.
It's probably misnamed.
I think I made a mistake putting the PC number on.
That's right.
That happens. We'll give you one more.
In the July 9th, 2020 Parklands Community Meeting, PC 537-20, requested approval to annually reduce the height of 2 carob trees at 2213 Via Acalones to 15 feet in height. The applicant indicated his request to top the trees would retain the neighborhood character and restore the view as long as the 2 trees at 2213 Via Acalones were reduced to the height they were when they purchased their home. The committee recommended approval to annually top the 2 carob trees located in the parkway adjacent to 2213 Via Acalones at 15 feet in height. Just to orientate the committee, there's 3 applications on Via Acalones requesting the 7 trees to be removed. The ones that are in this application are the 2 that are circled in orange. There was an unfortunate incident that happened where the tree company trimmed the trees to 10 feet in height rather than the 15 feet. And that happened twice, and the new owners of the house were angry about that happening. So Mr. Richard Sullivan mentioned that, well, 15 feet in height was what he thought, but it wasn't what would fix the view. And that it really should be something lower. These are the trees from the street, and these are the trees from his home. This is what the tree would be at 10 feet. And this is what the tree would be at 15 feet. And it's presently 18.7. The other tree at 10 feet, 15 feet, and it's now at 18.3. The applicant also has suggested replacing the carob trees, if they were to be removed, with the designated street tree, the Prescott plum, but is requesting that he be given the permission to annually maintain the trees at 13 feet in height. The tree management policy recognizes that the abundance of mature trees is a central factor in creating the unique character palette for the estates and contributes to the high property values and attractiveness of the living environment. In considering new applications, Parklands Committee shall strive to preserve or enhance scenic views. Parklands Committee shall respect the existing neighborhood character and shall respect the privacy of neighbors. We've provided some conditions of approval. And number 6 would be different, or as special is that if they are to plant they were given permission to remove the trees and plant the new trees, that they be responsible to maintain the trees for a year, ensure that they live, and if they die, then replant them. There are a number of options available to the committee tonight, and that would complete the staff report.
Okay, questions of staff? Susie?
I just want to clarify, you said that the trees should be, if they're trimmed at 15 feet.
That was the previous approval.
Okay. And that's your recommendation?
It certainly isn't what the applicant is requesting. It's hard to think about losing the trees, but it's hard to think about turning up to 10 feet, which is what Mr. Sullivan said would restore his view. I think 15 feet would be probably the lowest those trees can be trimmed and still look like trees.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions of staff, Brooks?
This is a question that may or may not belong here. So tell me if I go out. Carl, you've indicated that trimming a tree, you generally don't want to trim more than 25% of the foliage in the interest of maintaining the health of a tree. And I'm wondering if there's a technique where you can trim more than 25%, and I don't know what the number is, but kind of a more aggressive trimming such that you sort of open up the tree visually, but you don't stress the tree. I'm not talking about going down to just the branches and, roots, jumping out, but just sort of, 50% versus 25, for example. Is that even a viable kind of to wake the tree up but not stress it, or is that just a no-go?
Well, all that type of trimming does stress trees. Removing down to 15 feet would be more than 25% of the tree density. And it would be really difficult to thin the tree out because what you have is just a mess of suckers that have grown off the tree. But in the past, when Mr. Sullivan bought his house, they were sticks. And that was the method that was being employed to all the trees, is to take all the leaves off them, which would enhance the view better, but it wasn't beneficial to the tree.
Right. Okay. Well, this is my question, I think. Thanks.
And any questions of staff?
So this one is a little strange in that you're trying to trim a tree. I mean, I understand where the house has been, I think Mr. Sullivan had said, under construction for 5 years. So unless those people are here, we won't hear from them. But the other tree is in front of, we got a letter from the Fallons. It's in front of their house, and to ask to remove a tree that's in front of somebody's house, is that, I'm just thinking for myself, I have a neighbor above me, they'd asked to remove my tree, I'd be upset, but is that normal?
I think we received an abundance of communication from the street where everybody had different opinions, whether it be pro or against. So it is kind of normal. I think when we reviewed 1501 Via Lopez, the lady across the street requested that tree be removed in front of you and the stop sign. So I think it's kind of normal in the city is that people make requests, but that's for the Parklands committee to weigh the pros and cons.
Carl, is there a trimming lower than 15 feet but higher than 10 that would still enhance the view and not require removal?
12.
Well, I think Mr. Sullivan is asked to be able to maintain the purpley plum to 13 feet, and that might be a compromise.
It'll still look like a tree.
Yes, it still would have green leaves on it. I know that everybody would like to thin the tree out, but there's trees that have no leaves on them don't look like trees. And so I would not support that, but that is something that the committee could consider what type of trimming to approve. Whether you leave everything on the tree that's below 13 feet, or to thin it out by 50%, or more or less.
So the street tree was, as of 1995, these carobs.
That's correct.
And then after that, a new street tree was designated, and that is the purple leaf plum prunus. So in walking that street, which I did earlier this week, and looking at all the trees and everything, I didn't see very many purple leaf plum prunus trees. I saw, I think, one or two. So what happened, there may be more than that, but what happened to that tree in terms of it replacing the carob? So it looks like the carob trees are still prevalent and the plum trees did not really take.
So the ones that were planted died, and the rest of them that still are up there were topped without any permits. The problem with the purple leaf plum, it would certainly protect the views on Via La Brea, but a small tree in front of your house on Via Acolones, especially if it's a one-story house, would be right in your view unless you place it correctly. So I believe that most of the trees up there started to block the views of the people on Via Acolones, and they took it upon themselves to trim the trees lower. Purple leaf plums do not like to be trimmed and lowered. They oftentimes die. So the purple leaf plum has not been very successful.
So is there perhaps another type of tree that we might consider, given the poor record of the plum tree and the rather aggressive growth of the carob? Is there something, I would call it a dwarf tree, would like road to 10 or 12 feet in at maturity, or something of that ilk that might, be a healthy option? It would violate some of the right-of-way rules that we have, I think, the authority to do that in the interest of.
I don't think we're really at liberty to create our own new street tree through this process of an application.
Well, I'm not changing the street tree.
I understand, but that's essentially where you're going. So that's my thought. Maybe Carl has another thought.
The only thing I can say, there's not many trees that only grow 13 feet. There's a majestic beauty that we've designated on some of the trees that streets that does stay small, like on Via Smonte, Via Ramon. But they still would have an issue for the people on Via Acolones because they would be right in their view. So a new street tree could be considered at some time, but probably not tonight.
I have a question. These trees have been there, according to one of the residents, for like 50 years,
Yes, I think Mr. Beckler can confirm that,
right?
maybe even before.
Or maybe, actually, he's been there 54 years, and I think he said the trees were there before.
Yeah, so they probably are older than that.
Right, so they've been there a long time.
Yes.
And in terms of, but he also mentioned that the trees used to be trimmed by the city at the time when the city was trimming trees. Are you aware of how they were trimmed at that time?
Whenever I trimmed them, they were trimmed like normal trees. The city doesn't maintain trees by topping them and reducing them. So if a resident gets the permission to do that, they can maintain them, but when the city trims trees, we trim them according to the standards for trimming trees, and we would not.
But the situation here is that the city hasn't been trimming trees.
The city trims a lot of trees,
I mean, I'm talking
not
about.
as many trees that we have,
Yeah,
and that is due to a very small budget that
exactly.
restricts how much trimming we can.
So in terms of this tree, when was the last time that the city trimmed the trees?
About 4 months ago, we only trimmed the trees though that weren't trimmed. We trimmed the carrots on the acolones, and we trimmed all the trees that weren't trimmed because they were getting too low over the street on the corner of Via Nogales and Via Acolones. One tree failed, so we went in there and we trimmed all the trees that had not been trimmed, and obviously these ones that are trimmed to 20 feet need to be trimmed.
So you didn't trim every carrot on, yeah, or you did?
No, we only trimmed the ones that needed to be trimmed that were not being trimmed by somebody else.
Okay, so I think to Ann's question, the last time they had any regular kind of, like these trees were trimmed was when? By the city, 50 years
These have
ago?
only been trimmed by Mr. Beckler and Mrs. Kalani.
So the city never trimmed these trees?
Not recently. Since they got the approval to top them, we have not been trimming the trees.
I got a little confused there. You said 4 months ago you trimmed,
Some trees are.
but on Alcalones,
We trimmed selected trees on Via
not
Acolones.
any of the ones that are in question tonight?
No,
So you don't think these trees needed to be trimmed?
no. They look like trees to me. They're not unsafe.
Well,
That's our purpose of trimming trees.
Okay,
The
so-
ones that we did trim were having failures, and one fell over on the corner of Via Nogales, and then these carob trees have a considerable amount of decay. These trees right here have lots of dead in them, and if they
Yeah.
were to get really big, we would probably have to do something to them, but they're so small that we don't have to do anything, and someone else is maintaining them for the city and themselves.
Excellent, no one is maintaining.
So,
No one is maintaining these particular trees, these two. These are completely unkempt. They're going low, you know,
well, yeah,
so they're not being maintained by anybody. I don't know, certainly.
no, Mr. Sullivan is.
Carl, Mr. Beckler, I believe, was here in 2005 and brought an application before the Parklands Commission. I was just a young boy at that time. The Parklands Committee at that time approved 5 of the 9 carob trees to be removed and to plant the purple leaf plum new street tree. But that did not happen, did it?
No, only 2 of the trees were removed and 2 plums were planted. And the reason was that since he was requesting, I believe, 9 trees at the time, the way that the approvals came down, without all 9 going, certain trees were, the trees that were kept, if you would remove the tree behind it, it didn't improve the view. So Mr. Beckler made the decision that he would only remove the trees that were going to benefit him because it was all economics.
I see, but my understanding is only 2 carob trees were removed at that time, but they were done with approval of the committee.
That's correct.
All right.
I know. Excuse me, this isn't a vector issue, this is completely different. The number is a different number and a different.
I understand that. You'll get your chance. I'm just asking to have precedent because it's important. Any other comments or questions for staff? And if not, we'll start hearing from the folks who have given us cards. Do we have the applicant here on this item? Okay, Mr. Solon.
That's not the first. It's a full 5 minutes I have. So. That's it. Okay, okay. I'm Rick Sullivan. This is my wife, Julie. I'd like to thank the Parklands Committee and the members of, and the boards for reviewing our application. Our house is on 2020 Via Galonis. It was built in 2009. Next slide. This is the view that we had when we moved in. You see the 2 carob trees that are in front of 2213 were trimmed very low. This is the way they've been trimmed for 40 years. They've been treated differently than the other carob trees, which were much larger and more full. But as the forester said, these were kept very thinned out and short of maybe 11 feet or so. He said 10, but I think they're probably more like 11. But and that's the way they had been for years since we moved in. So I think it's important that these trees be treated separately than all the other trees because they've always been maintained 10 to 11 feet and very thinned out like this. When the house, that house was on the market, next slide, the trees at the time were still about 11 feet. Here's a picture of the listing on the real estate listing. You can get this online when you just put the address in. And this is what the tree looked like when it was purchased by the new owner and the current owner of the house right now. So it wasn't 20 feet tall. It was still the same thinned out tree. I mean, you know, but that's how it's looked for 40 years. So it is, this is what makes this difficult. So we always had this view for so many years. Next slide. So in 2020, 2 years later, there was no trimming, and this is what happened. This is the same view from the upstairs, which are our primary viewing area. We completely lost the view, the ocean view, and they're just massive trees. It's amazing how they seem to be pretty healthy, even though they've been trimmed for 40 years, like sticks, that somebody mentioned. So we submitted an application to trim the trees. I came up with 15 feet because I thought that would be okay. I assumed they're going to be thinned out significantly like they had been, so we could see through the tree and see the view like other members are talking about. We had, the permit the application was approved. The neighborhood was okay. The ones living in the street at the time were happy with it, and it was approved unanimously. What's important for this meeting, I think, is in 2013, we hired a contractor to trim the trees and requested that the forester supervise the trimming. And at the trimming, the forester didn't allow any of the thinning of the trees at all, and was strict with the 15-foot top-off limit. Next slide. So this is a picture of the same day after the trimming, after we spent nearly $1,000 to do the trimming. You can see that the view is substantially lost. After all that work with doing the application and everything. I did reach out to the city. I spoke with Anastasia Seams. She's not here anymore, but she was the director of Public Works. she discusses with the forester, and he told her that the trees couldn't be trimmed further or thinned out at all. And that's the way it had to be. She said he recommended if we wanted to restore the view that we had to remove the trees and plant another tree in, or just remove them. And so this is why we're at this application, because we had no alternative to try to get our view back. Next slide. So a year later, this is what the trees look like now. You know, they're almost 19 feet in height. We have no view. They're pretty bushy, and they're actually thicker and fuller than the other carob trees now because they weren't thinned out at all. So it's been really difficult. We spent thousands of dollars with this process. We haven't had a review and we're trying to figure out how we can get a view, but still work with the neighborhood and all that. So it doesn't seem like this current agreement is adequate to restore any of our views, and we'd like to consider as a solution more aggressive trimming or significant thinning of the trees, lowering the height a little bit, but that's not what I thought was an option. So our option was only to remove the trees. So we recommended just to remove the trees and replace them with the designated tree, the plum tree. This has already occurred at our house. They removed a big carob tree. What?
We have the plum.
Next, yeah, there's a plum in front of that car. That's our house. So they removed the trees in that one, and then 2205 Biacalones, they removed the carob tree there, replaced those with the tree. So, you know, we're trying to come up with a solution here so we can maintain our views as we've all talked about. I think these two trees have been very different than all the other ones, and I want to thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Solomon. Do we have some more speakers just on this agenda item, which is agenda item number 4?
I'm Michelle Segola, 2208 Biacalones.
Say your name again,
Michelle
please.
Segola, 2208, so I'm just down the street. We've lived in our home since 1992. Our beautiful street seems to be under attack. For the past 5 years plus, the construction site at 2213 Biacalones has been neglected and ignored by the owners and the city. It's been an eyesore and a hazard. Trash and weeds have taken over the front of the property, and most of the area is a refuge dump. We can see this all because the green barrier covering the fence has been missing or sagging for years. We look at this neglected mess every day. We've personally written 2 letters to the owners of this property requesting them to clean up the front of the property, but have not even gotten the courtesy of a response. We contacted the city to address the trash and debris littering the front of the property, but we're told that the contractor's foreman assured the city that the site was clean. It is not. Obviously, the owners do not care what the property looks like or how it impacts the neighborhood. By their own actions over 5 years, they do not care what the property looks like. In the past 5 years, the owners have never lived at this address. They've shown complete disregard for common courtesy for all of the neighbors on our street. Now, after 5 years, the property is still a mess, and they want to establish a new tree configuration which will completely block the view of the good people across the street. The trees, which were kept thinned and topped under 15 feet over the past 33 years that we know of, are now overgrown to a much higher level and thickened to a complete blind, blocking the previous view corridor. The common sense request to keep the trees thinned and under 15 feet is not only reasonable but fair. This is the condition the trees sustained when the property was sold in 2018. It is unfair to expect anything else. And the purple plum trees in front of our house are very healthy, and they even give plums. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I have some more cards. Who wants to speak next on item number 4? Go ahead, please. Tell us your name.
Hi, my name is Miriam Hayabi. I'm the owner with my husband of 2213 Via Colones. Good evening, members of the Parkland Committee and neighbors. My name is Miriam. I moved to Palos Verdes in 1988. I'm here today to strongly oppose the removal of all the city-owned trees on our street, not just ours, which are more than just foliage. They are vital to the character, privacy, and value of our beautiful community. When we chose to purchase our home, the mature trees lining the streets were a deciding factor. They bring charm and beauty, shaping the unique character of the neighborhood. Removing them would permanently alter the streetscape, diminishing not only its appeal, but also the sense of connection that these shared resources foster. These trees are also essential for privacy and protection. Our home directly faces the neighboring property with a fully glass front facade and concentrated massing near the street. The trees act as a natural, effective buffer, shielding our family from constant visibility. Without them, our home would lose its privacy, exposing us to unwelcome intrusion into our living area, bathroom, and kids' bedroom. And that's a picture of my kids' bedroom, and that's from there. We've worked to maintain positive relations with our neighbors. We've worked to maintain positive relations with our neighbors, even preserving our home's ridge height during the remodel to be considered. We didn't even raise it 1/100th of an inch. Unfortunately, that same care was not reciprocated. Without notice, unauthorized trimming of these city-owned trees were conducted by workers from Finley's Trees hired by Mr. Sullivan. This was both unlawful and careless. It was reported to the city to intervene, as such actions not only undermine trust, but also set a dangerous precedent for handling public assets without oversight. Both the Sullivans and Finleys were fined a hefty amount for this unlawful butchering of our trees. While I empathize with our neighbors' concerns, there are ways to address them without restoring to tree removal. We are more than willing to collaborate on solutions that balance everyone's interests, including maintaining the trees per the forester guidelines for aesthetics and height of 15 feet, which was approved previously without our knowledge. We are even willing to share in the cost of trimming of the trees. However, removing the trees entirely is not a fair or necessary compromise. It's also worth noting that the Parkland Committee's guidelines emphasize respecting views from the main viewing areas of our home. For us, these spaces are on the first floor, our living area, yard, and entertaining space. Cutting down the trees offers no meaningful improvement to the neighbor's view from their primary spaces, but would drastically impact our privacy, enjoyment, and the character of our home. City-owned trees are a shared community resource benefiting everyone by enhancing public spaces and supporting our environment. Approving the removal of healthy trees will create a harmful precedent, encouraging others to prioritize individual preferences.
Ma'am, I think your time is up, but thank you very much for that statement.
Mr. Sullivan, know his timeline.
He's the applicant, sir.
Are you gonna know his timeline?
Okay, next speaker on item number 4, please. Do we have Mr. Covini wishes to speak, or who's next? No. Okay, yeah.
Hi, my name is David Panini. Actually, I live on Villa Briada Street, above the Agonis. And I'm not sure if this committee is familiar with what's going on. This has been like a turf war about these trees for over a decade. So one side, their view is more valuable than the other side, and some people like the trees, some people, but when it's on the other street, so they block their views, they don't care about those trees and they want them taken out. So anyway, I'm actually here in support of Dr. Sullivan's application to remove those 2 current trees. As I read the staff report, the letters from the residents that are opposing or approving it or in favor, everybody talks about my tree or our tree or this tree. It's the city trees. The city bears the final responsibility and decision of making it right for all the residents. There is not one view more valuable than another view. So these city trees, therefore, city should determine the outcome and not the residents from all over that are not even remotely living in the area anymore. Some people sold their houses and moved, and they'll be coming here and they're gonna be opposing or in favor. So they're not even impacted. It just, what happens is it's a game mentality. The loudest person wins or causes the more chaos. They don't look out their view daily that is blocked by these city trees or have financial burden of trimming the trees. That is not even that impactful. They didn't pay top dollar for their view that has been diminished. Parkland Committee really needs to transition to the current approved trees, the plum trees. We were here back in 2016, 2017. This goes even further back, and the committee and the city had, if the plum trees were not taken, they had ample of time to decide on a different tree. And the same thing was said last time, 8 years ago, that, well, yeah, maybe the plum trees are not taking, we should consider another tree. It's been a decade, and nothing has changed. The plum trees have taken on Via Calones. At the beginning of Via Calones, when you turn in next to the park off of Via Altamira, at the Sullivan House, there's 2 plum trees in front of, on Via Calones, there's plenty of plum trees on there, and they're doing fine. The Parkland Committee really needs to transition and pay attention to because these carrot trees are causing a huge issue in the neighborhood, among the neighbors, and as a view. It's an ongoing issue, and everyone.
Mr. Khalidi, thank you so much, and you're out of time, sir, unfortunately, but thank you for that. Next speaker.
My name is Tom Beckler. Excuse my largitis, but I have to struggle with it. We share a backyard, and then the neighbor with Dr. Sullivan and his wife. And I'm delighted to see so many residents of Villa Calones here to support his request for removal and replacement of the carrot trees at 2213. We knew the family who lived there in that property before. And the trees there were maintained very well. And in addition to that, we noticed, just looking at the slides here as well, how the trees had been maintained until the new construction occurred. The new construction has been a total disaster for the people in the neighborhood for well over five years. And as was mentioned before, there's always been a lot of trash and different debris around. There's no assurance that the people in that house are going to maintain the tree in any semblance of way in which Dr. Sullivan and his wife would be able to enjoy their views. They have a 2-story home with a splendid view of the ocean if it was permitted. So I would appreciate your approving his request for a change in the environment and the means removal and replacement with the street designated tree is long overdue. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beckler. Okay, next, item number 4 only. Okay. Well,
Good evening,
well,
Chairman and committee members. I'm the owner of 2213 Villa Calones.
so your wife has already spoken,
She
right?
has a different point of view.
All right. All right, go ahead.
I'm not repeating what she's saying, so, I mean, the least we can do is give me 3 minutes.
You got it.
All the
Go
other-
ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
My name is Jacob Ayapi, and I'm the owner of the property located at 221 Via Colones. I'm sorry about the construction, but I can't live in my house because it's still under construction. I'm here today to express my opposition to the proposed removal of the mature carrot trees on the entire street. These trees are not only integral to the unique character of our neighborhood, but they also contribute to the aesthetic beauty of our street. When my family and I purchased our home, we were drawn to the charm of the neighborhood, largely due to the presence of the trees. They enhance the visual appeal of our community, boost our property values, and create more pleasant living environment for all the residents. Furthermore, the carob trees offer significant privacy for our home, as you can see. If they were removed, it would directly affect the privacy of our bedroom, living room, which would become exposed to the street and our neighbors across the road who want to remove them. This disruption would diminish the quality of our life in our home and negatively impact our living conditions. It's funny to you, not to me. The proposed replacement trees, the purple leaf plum, simply do not match the mature established aesthetic of the carob tree. Those trees, as Carl said, have dried and died mostly, and they only last about 20 to 30 years. Additionally, the plum trees are more vulnerable to pests and diseases, making them less sustainable option for our street. We understand that our neighbors have expressed a desire to enhance their view of the ocean from their upstairs windows. However, we believe that that concern can be addressed in a manner that preserves both the trees and the neighborhood's character. Historically, the Parkland Committee recommended the trees to be trimmed to 20 feet. Mr. Sullivan put an application to trim them to 15 feet without our knowledge, even though he falsely stated that we were not interested in continuing the topic. Nobody called us, and there was no notice posted, possibly due to COVID-19 in 2020. The subsequent tree trimmings were problematic. They were less than 10 feet. The urban forester was there, he witnessed it. We are not opposed to maintaining the trees at an appropriate height, as long as the proper permits are obtained and the urban forester provides guidance. Even at that height, the trees in front of our home still remain shorter than any of the trees in our street. Additionally, the carob trees help regulate local water cycles, absorb rainwater, reduce surface runoff, and filter water through their roots. Removing them could lead to increased runoff, soil degradation, and potential contamination of local water supplies. In conclusion, it's not funny, it's a fact. I strongly oppose the removal of these beautiful, mature carob trees. Their loss would not only disrupt the character and privacy of our neighborhood, but also harm the local ecosystem and environment.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak and your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, I think that's the last of our speakers. I don't have any, oh, we have one more. Yes, Martha? Martha? Oh, sorry, I have your card.
That's okay.
You can proceed when ready.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the committee and the chair. My name is Mata, and I'm a proud resident of Palos Verdes for over 36 years. I'm here tonight to express my deep concern about the potential removal of trees, especially the number of carob trees along Via Acolones, specifically those mentioned in the applications for items 4, 5, and 6. These trees are not just a part of our landscape, they're part of what makes Palos Verdes so special. As someone who grew up in Palos Verdes and frequently takes walks along Via Acolones, I've personally experienced the majestic beauty, presence, and tranquility these carob trees bring to the neighborhood for many years. The carob trees create an unmatched and historic sense of peace and connection to nature. Their beauty and presence enhance the neighborhood, offering shade, supporting wildlife, contributing to the charm and character of our city. Removing these trees would be a loss that cannot be replaced. It would not only harm the environment, but also take away a part of what makes Palos Verdes feel like home and diminish the unique appeal of our community. I kindly urge the committee to reconsider and to deny the application in order to preserve these trees as an important part of our city, maintain their existing character, and for the benefit of current and future generations. Thank you for listening, for your commitment to keeping Palos Verdes the beautiful place we all call home.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, I don't believe we have any more speakers dedicated to item number 4. So let's open up discussion.
You know, we heard a lot of really good comments in that, in both in support of removal and in favor of trimming. Going back to the trimming, and Chairman Cooper brought it up, is when the applicant showed the pictures that what was before and then when the city trimmed them, is there a way to bring them down farther? Like we talked, there was 15 feet to 10 feet. Can we come up with another number that's, I guess, maintains the health of the tree, but brings it down so that you can see through, so you have a view, so it enhances the view? I think that was kind of where you were at. I know you're specific about, you know, what, I guess, where you want to have it, but in order to accommodate the request to, you know, to have the view back, how do we do that without taking the trees down? How can we be more helpful there?
Well, the 15 feet didn't work for Mr. Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
So a lower height may work. Thinning the trees the way they were thinned by removing all branches and all the leaves, in my estimation, would be wrong, but it would open up the most view for a short period, for a temporary period of time.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly a way to change and lower the trees 13 feet or whatever the committee decides, and then they could also determine what kind of density they want. If it's 100% removal of all the leaves, that would be what the motion would be. And the reason that the forester didn't allow thinning because it wasn't part of the motion before.
So could you make a recommendation on that for us to consider that would still maintain the health of the tree and some of the look, but not, you know, versus us saying trim them all the way down to nothing? You know, we don't know. So could you say I could take it to 50% and I'd still be happy with it?
That would be appropriate.
Okay.
That certainly would be beneficial to see through them to some degree.
All right. Then my next question might be for more of a legal question. The resident said that they would participate in paying for the trimming. Can that be part of the motion, that we say it has to be, the trimming has to be evenly split between the two residents?
Yes, it certainly wouldn't be done by the city.
Right, I understand that, but
I don't think you need to put that in your motion if the neighbors are offering to do that. Eventually, though, I believe that the applicant is responsible for the cost.
He is, but
Now, I don't think you can compel somebody to pay for something that they didn't apply for. But he certainly has offered to contribute.
okay. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think I would make that part of any motion.
well, that's what I'm just curious
If you
because
just can work that out, that's great.
but saying it and doing it are two different things.
I understand.
I'm just saying if it was part of the motion, and again, you're saying,
I don't think you can compel them. I'm not legal counsel. I'm the interim director, but I don't think you can compel a non-applicant to pay money to trim trees that were applied for by somebody else. I don't think it would be right.
I don't think the intentions are high here, obviously. People feel strongly, I understand that. And so it's nice if somebody offers to do that, but you know, forcing people together, I don't think is a solution. If they come together naturally, I think that's a great thing in the community, and it happens a lot.
Yeah, so for me,
Wait
this.
a minute, I just
Okay.
guess it would maintain the commitment, that's all. I'm just saying, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it, and it's just, how do we make sure that commitment is still there, or we don't? I don't know.
I really don't think you can.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it seems to me that replacement of these trees with the plum tree doesn't necessarily solve the problem. Because those trees are gonna grow to what, 30 feet, Carl?
No, 18 is.
18 feet.
Right.
So we're gonna be right back in the same place when those things grow. So, you know, I think it's, obviously, you know, there's a view that was there, it's not there now. Those trees were kept very, very thin. And so, you know, I'm not asking questions, we're not doing questions.
No,
We're just making, I'm just
We're making
rambling.
comments.
Yeah, I'm just making comments.
We're doing well.
No,
No, we're making comments.
we're not. So I think, you know, my sense is that, I'd like to keep the trees and trim them so the view's restored. And how we do that is something we can further discuss.
Yeah, I appreciate the diversity of the comments tonight, both from the view side and the tree removal side. I agree with Bob that I'd like to see, well, I appreciate the privacy concerns. When I look at the trees currently, they look like they haven't been well maintained or trimmed. They could be a lot, you know, tidier. And I liked Susie's idea that, yeah, maybe we can get down to a much thinner shape or look. I mean, clearly these trees have been trimmed aggressively historically. And look at them today. I mean, I guess I'm not convinced completely, Carl, that trimming them aggressively will starve them and kill them, because obviously they grow even more aggressively after they've been trimmed. So I'm not afraid of asking for, say, 50% thinning in the interest of getting the view back, or at least, and it is kind of a dominant part of the view. So I sympathize with the Sullivans. I'm also not encouraged by the track record of the Plums, and agree that, yeah, they're just gonna, I mean, we live in a world where trees grow, believe it or not. And we just need to kind of keep that in mind as we go here. But, yeah, I would err on the side of finding a way to thin the tree aggressively, and ideally the neighbors on both sides of the street can share the cost.
So, I walked the street too, as everybody, and it is a very nice street. I walked it before this application. I love the trees, and I think this is one of the only streets, or not the only, but one of the few streets that you could say has the street tree character. I mean, you go to a lot of streets and you say, oh, this is, you have this kind of tree or that kind of tree, and you might pick two of them, and then everybody else has planted something else. So anyway, so I was, so in my walking of the street before the application, I was always impressed by the carrot trees that are along it. That said, not all are taken care of in the same way. And so in terms of view, you have the view from the people who are on that side of the street, on the west side of the street. Well, they have a view too. They look out of their house and they see a tree. You have a view from across and they want to just look at the Queen's Necklace. You also have a view from people who are down the hill and they look up and they see trees. That's, I think we all like that view as well. So I do think, though, getting back to the city never seems to have, not never, lately or in a long time, they really don't have the funds to trim the trees consistently like they should. So that's why we, the residents, and I do the same thing. I get the permit and I trim my street tree. And you know, that's what you guys are doing. I commend you for doing that. And I would just hope that as a neighborhood, that you come together and you come, I mean, in terms of how I look at this, you come together, you embrace the trees, but you get them trimmed in a way that the neighborhood supports. I do think the aggressive trimming that was done in the past is not a good thing. I have a carrot tree. You can trim it with a nice crown and still look through it, and it looks like a tree, you know. But when you aggressively trim something, it's not nice for the person whose house that tree is in front of, you know. And you know, you might be looking through it, but you know, we want to look at a tree. So anyway, so I am not for removing the tree, but also I'm not for aggressively trimming it. But I do think that the city has to come up with a way that consistently, you know, that on this, they have nice trees, the carrot trees, you know, are nice along the street. And if we could come up with a way that isn't an aggressive trimming, but is a trimming that you can see through, but also has a nice crown to it. So I would put that as a challenge to Carl.
I think we have to come up with a recommendation.
But that would be my recommendation.
Okay, well, I think we have to come up with I think we're in agreement that we don't want to remove the trees, but we want to do everything we can to give them a better shot at a view. So how do we do that? Is that at 12 feet or?
Well, I don't think you have to, on the street where I live, we have carrot trees as well. So I've never seen them top, but as they grow, if you do let them grow the way they should, and you trim them, then you're just, you know, you're still able to see through the tree, and it looks like a nice tree. I mean, this one has been topped for so long, and this one's not been trimmed. This one has no trimming, and he even said that he's
But even
not.
the 15-foot shot that we saw that the applicant had didn't really give a real good view because it was still really full. I think that's what we're talking about, is coming up with what is the percentage that Carl would recommend the lowest you could go and thinning it out.
I think he was saying he would agree to a 50%.
50% thinning of the branches, right?
Of the branches.
Right, I'm
Is that what you said?
try.
Is that what you said?
I was suggesting that you lower the height and that you allow for aggressive thinning. Bear in mind that a tree that's that size, that's been treated the way it has been, doesn't have a lot of opportunity to be laced out and made to be look pretty. Because all that grows off of it is suckers.
So
So
you
it's very difficult to make it look like a pretty tree.
So you don't think,
And lower it to
so you don't think
13
it can be laced?
Well, it can be, but it's not going to be a pretty tree. And carrot trees, you can't really kill them, and they aggressively grow back. And so whatever type of trimming you do, whether it be removal of all the leaves or 50%, that would be better than removing the trees.
So I'm gonna try, any other comments? I'm gonna try to propose a motion here, and I think it may take a little tweaking, but I'm gonna propose that we deny the petition or the application to remove the trees, but approve significant thinning of the trees to restore the view of the applicant, and while also lowering the height to 13 feet at the crown and thinning of at least 50% so that their view is restored. That's the motion. Do I hear a second?
Would you include the standard conditions?
Thank you, Mr. Public Works Director.
I
And
second.
that also includes the standard conditions of approval.
And I second.
All right, let's have a vote.
Committee Member McKinney,
Yes, in favor.
Committee Member Nye,
Can I amend it
No,
on the tree.
nope, we'll have to start over, but you can do whatever you want.
Okay, yes.
Vice Chair Rossick,
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item number 5. We're not moving on to a new street, but we're moving on to a new number. You may be on this street all night, I don't know.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
All right, let's move to PC 587-24. And this is an application to remove 3 carob trees located in the parkways adjacent to 2221 and 2224 via Acalones. And do we have a staff report?
Again, this is the, all the trees that have been requested to be removed. And the ones that are in this application are the 3 that are orange. There is certainly a history here for Mr. Beckler going back to 2005. This application though, PC 587-24, requests to remove 1 carob tree adjacent to 2221 via Acalones and 1 carob tree adjacent to 224 via Acalones. These 2 carob trees were previously approved to top to 20 feet in height in application PC 449-17. This application was submitted by Mary Colleen. The applicant indicates the topping of the trees initially was fairly good, but due to the increase in height of the trunks, less trimming is allowed each year, reducing the improvements to view. The indication is that trees that were topped to 20 feet are continuing to grow taller and effectively less benefit is accomplished. This is contrary to arboriculture. Topping cuts that were inflicted on the branches of the trees at 20 feet have not continued to elongate. The position of the branch doesn't change, only new branches grow from the topping cuts. Trunk top to 20 feet will only grow in diameter, not length. The problem that was occurring was the tree trimmers were making new cuts below the established topping cuts to accomplish the trimming faster, effectively lowering the trees beyond the initial approval height. The trimming approved still allows the trees to be lowered to the established topping cuts, but not below. Inflicting new cuts doesn't allow trees to ever seal the wounds with new wood, and fungus invades and decay will result. That results in strength of the branch. It reduces the strength of the branches as decay moves down the interior branches. The sign when trees grow back vigorously is because they're trying to reestablish the leaves so they can photosynthesize, not that means they're more healthy. And that certainly diverts all their attention from disease prevention, root growth to producing leaves. It's not something that most people see, but it's what arboriculture teaches us of what happens to a tree when all the leaves are removed. In considering view-related applications, the committee shall respect the following considerations as outlined in the tree management policy. To the greatest extent practical, strive to preserve or enhance scenic views from the main viewing area of a residential structure. This is taken from the book that all arborists study, which indicates that the entire zone of stem elongation, in which cells divide and enlarge to mature dimensions, is the most applicable 20 to 50 millimeters or 1 to 2 inches part of the stem. This is true for the branches as well as the main trunk, which means that the trees are not continuing to grow in height. They're only branches that are growing off. They increase in diameter, but they do not. Once the cell has reached its full length, it's mature, it does not elongate. So the trunks are not moving up. These are the trees that are in the application on the street. And this is the measurements that we made for, they're kind of averaging between 23 to 25. This is the second tree at 24.7, and this is the third tree at 23.2. And obviously, there is some degree of error with that pole to try to figure out where exactly the height is. So they're averaging between 23 and 25 feet. This is the view from Mr. Beckler's house of the three trees. This is more close and closer. Respecting the existing neighbor character and not significantly altering the unique feeling of the particular neighborhood. Removal of the care of trees will change the existing neighborhood character. That's, I don't think that's a question. It will change the character of the neighborhood. Respect privacy of neighbors by maintaining the greatest extent practical adequate screening of structures and yards from the sight of the neighbors. When the care trees are trimmed, privacy and screening is reduced until the new trees grow and new branches and leaves. There are no safety issues whether the trees stay or go in their present condition. And as far as the designated street tree, the carrot tree was a designated street tree up to 1995, and it was changed in 2001 to the purple leaf plum. We've included the standard conditions of approval. There are a number of recommendations or alternatives for the committee tonight, and that would complete the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Questions of staff?
I'm just curious, and when I was out there talking, in your opinion, those trees are healthy? They're all healthy trees?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no question one's gonna die.
Well, there is certainly a lot of decay inside the trees,
Okay,
but the
and what,
leaves are very healthy, very green, they come back on. But if you go down the street and you see some of the carrot trees in the neighborhood, you'll see these yellow fungal bodies that grow on them, which is indicating that the internal decay is in there. And eventually internal decay will cause the tree to become unsafe and fail.
okay. These aren't there yet?
No, there's no fungal bodies that I can see on any of these trees.
Okay,
There are dead portions of the trunk all through the trees. There's indications, like all trees, that they have their issues, but they're still healthy enough to keep on coming back.
okay, all right, thank you.
So Carl, the group of trees taken from this view, the top of them is about 23 feet on average.
Probably 24, 23, 24.
Okay, and there's been approval to lower them greatly in the past. So we've got
That's correct, yes.
precedent down to 15 feet, right?
It was 20 feet, the approval.
These three
Yes.
actual, okay. And if we lowered them lower than that, how would that affect the health of the trees?
They would do what they always do, which is send out new branches and new leaves, and they would recover.
They seem to be very hardy, aren't they?
You could be as aggressive as, you could go down to, how low would you say? If they're at 20, what would be your?
Well, I think you'd probably want to try to keep, I think you'd want to match the trees in front of the Sullivans, but if the idea is that you want improvement, then you could bring them down to 18 feet. The lower you go, though, the bigger the cut.
Okay,
The bigger the wound, I should say.
I see.
But some of these carobs on Viacalois have been trimmed down to 15 feet, even 13, even lower, right?
Yes.
Then why would you say these should remain at 18 versus just to preserve as much?
Well, they look more like trees.
Just for the, okay, I get it. It's for the aesthetic. Okay. Any other questions?
Question, and forgive me for this goes the wrong place, but is there a definition of what a view constitutes in Palos Verdes? Because implied in this application is, oh, well, I'm losing my view. And I think, well, I don't know, views have oceans and trees and mountains and red tile roofs and telephone poles, and I'm not quite sure where where the boundaries of a view are. What, we should be trying to legislate around. That makes sense?
Well, I think the tree management policy focuses on ocean views, but certainly there's many views, whether it be a golf course, whether it be of the sky, whether it be of the neighborhood. So there's be a lot of definitions of the view, and whatever it is that someone would like to see could be better than what they do see or what they want to see. So I don't know if we could come up with it, but in the tree management policy, it does say, even the community landscapes in the area, the vistas, whatever those vistas are, and obviously in this, there's the Queen Necklace and the ocean out there, which is a very significant view.
And any
Yeah.
questions of staff?
So, if you had gone back, I think you have a picture where you went back a little bit for this. So when we were up there and looking, the thing that's, the thing that stuck out to us was the pole, the electric pole. I mean, I thought, wow, that's really in your view. And Mr. Beckler said, well, he did try in his neighborhood to try to get them to put the power lines underground, but that didn't work in terms of view. But that was in people's view. Anyway, just saying that wasn't his view. In terms of the lowering of the tree, if you go to your next slide. So what's nice about these trees is, and that's what I was talking about the other one, is when they get to a certain height and you have the big trunks, right? And then you have that nice canopy, which makes it look like a tree. And when you lower it, you're kind of squashing it down to just the trunk, and you really can't get that nice canopy. So that's what I thought the other trees on the street had, because they were let to grow a little higher, and so therefore the trunks, not suckers, at least, were able to show it had a canopy. So I thought that they looked more like a tree. It is a little bit in their view, but I would say that they have quite the view of the Queen's Necklace. So, so I was wondering your opinion in terms of the other trees that were kept at a height that were at the 23 foot, or more, you're saying at the 23 foot. Do you think that you're able, in terms of if the city was trimming them, would that be your recommendation to keep them at that height? Or would you want to cut them shorter to 18 feet?
If I was in charge of the trimming for the city,
Yeah.
I wouldn't lower the trees.
You wouldn't
I
lower-
wouldn't top the trees.
I wouldn't top
The
them.
municipal code doesn't allow us to do anything but what the correct trimming according to the ISA, International Society of Horticulture, is. And so I've never been the arborist that's gonna go out and top trees and decide who gets a view and who doesn't get a view. That's for the Parklands committee to decide.
Right, but I understand that. But in terms of if you were to top the tree, it's going to cause you more problems later on, because you're going to have to keep topping it and not let it, versus, in other words, if we had a close-up of those trees, they don't have any leaves from the trunk up to their higher branches already.
That's correct.
Yeah, so.
They only form suckers.
They only form.
And so that's very difficult for a tree trimmer to try to thin out and make it look like
Right.
anything, but Certainly, taking half the suckers out would make the tree be more see-through. But I don't think it would last very long. And so trying to establish a height that people could see over and provide the tree with leaves on it so it provides screening from homes and looks like a tree would be more what I would be leaning towards.
Anyway, that's what I'll do.
Say that again, Carl, that what you would be leaning towards?
Is that the idea would be to see over the trees at some height, but the rest of the tree would provide the screening and privacy and the tree look by not thinning it out aggressively, so all it was a hat rack.
So, right, so with these 23-foot level trees, you think 18 feet would achieve that? Potentially.
I think it would improve the views for the applicant because it would be 2 foot lower.
If there's no further questions of staff, then let's start hearing from the speakers. The applicant, Mr. Beckler.
We'll have to get his PowerPoint up.
Could you move that? If you show slide number 4. You're on the presentation.
Could I go first?
You want Mr. Rigg to go first?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rigg.
Sorry.
No, so he's got 3 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alan Rigg. I'm Assistant Tom. Next slide, please. We believe all the findings for the tree management policy can be made because that's what you need to actually base the findings on. Please note that the 2 trees at 2221, as Carl mentioned, were previously approved to be removed by the Parklands Committee and should be reapproved for removal, similar to the way that you looked at the hedge earlier tonight. Some of the letters you received recognize that 7 trees on the act is on your agenda tonight. With this many trees, I hope you recognize the severe impacts and costs that cost the Villa La Brea residents, and that this is an opportunity to renew our aging forests. The city recently found out they have many more thousands of trees than previously thought, so replacing these bad ones is appropriate. They are the wrong tree in the wrong place. When you take a look at the character of the street, it's changing. It's changing to attractive purple leaf plums rather than the stumps that are half-racked and are ugly for much of the time. Next slide, please. The 3 trees block a significant amount of view in Queen's Necklace. Next slide, please. Here you can see the trees after they were topped in 2017. Even with the topping, the trees still block ocean views and quite frankly are not attractive. The residents on Villa La Brea have spent many thousands of dollars in topping costs, which will become more expensive with changes in what I understand the city's prohibition of chainsaws. The residents of Villa La Brea have noted that the view enhancement they get with the toppings is diminished each year. I know Carl's opposed to this, but it's what they see and that's what they've experienced. Topping has not been and is not going to solve this issue. You've got a war between Acolones and Villa La Brea. The wrong trees were planted in the wrong place, and to continue to only allow the topping is just going to continue this bad decision. Next slide, please. The trees appear as one mass as the trees line up in Mr. Beckler's view. Next slide, please. The trees at 2221, next slide, please, and then 2224. Next slide. And then please note the roots have damaged the driveway and exposed the city and the adjacent property owner to trip and fall liability, as well as replacement costs. It could be argued that the city should remove this tree for public safety. Final slide, please. I would ask the committee to recognize that these are the proverbial wrong trees in the wrong place. The residents on Villa La Brea have spent a great deal of money to keep these trees where they're at, and it's time for them to be relieved of the costs. Please remember the ones at 2221 have been previously approved to be removed, and the one at 2220, 2244 is a significant risk. The purple leaf plum is becoming prevalent on the street, and this transition needs to continue. You can go through, there's no other area of the city that's gone through this constant battle of the wrong trees in the wrong place. And I know you don't want to rip the Band-Aid off, and I know coming after the previous application, that's going to be tough. that these trees need to be removed and the neighborhood needs to heal and the new trees need to become prevalent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Red. Mr. Beckler, do you want to speak?
Can you return it to the slide number 4?
It's the one with the, right there.
One of the line choices you get even better, so. For 54 years, we have been the owners of 2229. The care of trees were trimmed to protect our views by the city. In the 1980s, the city stopped not putting in place a tree management policy. They just stopped funding it. Joining Aclota's residents removed the horizontal limbs that had been encouraged by the previous trimming. We have tried several times to replace the caribs with 3 trees. And once we removed 2 of the 8 that were requested. We were permitted in 2017 to trim to 20 feet. The guidelines change every year, and the benefit is less than it was before. The cost would overall have approximately $25,000 for the 2 neighbors that are funding this. And now we've reached $4,000 per year with diminished benefits. When will the city recognize the need to replace with the flowering plum? So I'm very glad that you're taking this off this time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beckler.
I want to thank the Parklands committee members who came to the house to see the view. Thank you.
Okay, we have several other folks who want to speak, some of whom look very familiar as people who have spoken before. Mr. Collini, do you want to speak on this? You're listed as speaking on this item, are you not?
I'm in support of his.
Okay, well, why don't we hear from, well, go ahead. Go ahead, we'll hear from everybody eventually.
Hi again. So I'm gonna make this short. So you guys are gonna hear after me from people who are gonna oppose the tree removals. And I understand people talk about character, but the character in the neighborhood is changing. A lot of these houses are being demolished, they're building second floors, and the second floors, when they come up, caribs are gonna be in their way and their view are gonna be limited, and they're gonna come back and themselves on vehicles will be asking for the tree removals. I'm in support of Mr. Beckler's application. He has lived in his home for over 50 years, and he has clearly seen his view diminish by year. He only wants what he had once, nothing more, nothing less. These trees need to be removed, as has been mentioned here. Carl stated that from year to year, cutting them to the 20 feet is not working anymore because the trunks are getting fatter and the side branches are growing more and more. Every year we spend so much money to trim these trees with less and less benefits. It is getting really costly for absolutely no reason. And I don't understand why some views on vehicle owners are more valuable than our view on Via La Brea. Some trees are approved at 15 feet, some trees are approved at 20. Does their view, do they have any special treatment? Are their views more important than ours? You guys have to consider that this has been going on for many, many, many years. And these trees were all approved prior to being removed. All of them were approved to be removed. And trimming has becoming very costly and extremely annoying. And the only one that knows what's going on with the actual permit is Carl. This last year, when we wanted to trim, we got the runaround. No one knows what's going on with the permit. It took us 2 months to get anyone to give us anything to start trimming. Finley had to go several times to get the permit to get started. It is becoming cumbersome. And I would ask Carl, would it make more sense to take these trees out and put plum trees and nurture them and make sure that they grow and they do well, as they're doing on Via Colonis in the beginning by Grandville Altamira or on Via La Brea? We have multiple plum trees that are doing well on Via La Brea. We should start moving into that transition and get this over. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Cleveland. And next, we have Michael Burnett. Are you here? Come on up.
Yes.
Is it 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Am I good to go?
You have 3 minutes, good.
All right, good evening, thank you.
Let her rip.
Michael Burdick, 2221 via Acolones. My wife and I have been here for 47 years. We have the distinction of having 2 carob trees, well, bullseyes on them right now. And we just can't imagine driving up to our home and seeing those trees not being there. Next slide. 254. We've got 2 La Brea applicants trying to remove 5 carob trees on 4 different properties on Acolones. Next slide. We're trying to give you an idea of the juxtaposition of the various properties. The 2 dark orange on the bottom are the 2 properties on La Brea. The 4 yellow properties on top are the 4 targeted properties on Via Acolones. Needless to say, this is all about sight lines. I'm completely in favor of reducing the height of these trees by trimming. Whatever Carl and the committee can agree to determine is a good balance between a view and a properly trimmed tree would be favorable to us. Removing the tree is not an option as far as we're concerned. Next slide, please. Next. Oh. This is a photo that was in Mr. Beckler's slide deck. It's got a number of problems. Number one, it's just a narrow telephoto view. It doesn't show a 180 degree that he has. It's a narrow pinch of view from his perspective. Next slide, please. Okay. I have some yellow text on top. You probably can't read it. There's no date on this photo, so we have no idea when it was taken. We have no idea what the tree height was. So it's meaningless to make a judgment based on this photo. Also, on the right of the photo, you see some 6 arrows. Those are trees on Mr. Collini's private property that are into Mr. Beckler's view horizon.
They're trimmed.
So you've got one neighbor blocking a view of another neighbor, and these are the 2 neighbors that are going down to Acolones trying to remove 5 trees. They're blocking their own view. Next slide, please. So next slide. Oh, I'm not going to read this because this is basically Carl's report, which basically.
Mr. Barnick, unfortunately, you're out of time, but we got it. You got your gist of what you're telling us. Thank you. And I guess we have Linda Burnick here as well to speak.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Linda Vernick, and I've lived at 2221 Via Apollonis for a long 47 years. I'm here to address the application to remove 5 carob trees along Via Apollonis, a matter that has already been reviewed and resolved in the past. Let me take you back to January 2017. At that time, the city council reached an agreement with the residents of Via Apollonis and Via La Brea. The agreement allowed these trees to be trimmed annually to a height of 20 feet. This was a fair compromise, balancing the concerns of applicants with the interests of the community. It also preserved the unique character of our neighborhood. The first trimming under this agreement was completed by the Polines in February 2017. For years, this solution has worked beautifully. It proved to be both effective and reasonable. Now the applicants have returned, not to request another trimming, but to propose the outright removal of these healthy trees. This raises serious concerns. If the 2017 decision is overturned, it sets a troubling precedent that settled agreements can be revisited, challenged, and undone until a preferred outcome is achieved. What message does that send? It tells residents that council decisions are temporary and negotiable, undermining the trust in the process and the stability of our community. Let's not forget what these carob trees represent. They are more than just greenery. They're part of our neighborhood's identity. These trees have been here for decades, predating many of us. When we chose to live in this area, we embraced the environment as it is, knowing these trees were part of the view. Removing them now isn't about restoring a view. It's about creating a new one for a few individuals at the expense of the entire neighborhood. The compromise reached in January of 2017 was fair then and remains fair today. By honoring the agreement, we protect more than just these trees. We safeguard the integrity of our decision-making process and ensure trust between the community and our leaders. If we allow this matter to be reopened, we risk overwhelming our system with new petitions on settled issues. And that's a burden we cannot avoid. So I ask you, let's stand by the 2017 agreement. Let's preserve these healthy carob trees, maintain the character of our neighborhood, and ensure our decision-making process remains strong and stable. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Still have more cards. Brookie Water. Come on up.
I'm going to use the slides that Michael's using, please.
Any particular slide?
I will start off with that one, and then the only other one I'm going to use is the very last one. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Okay, here we go. My name is Berkey Waterman. My husband and I have lived at 2228 Via Apollonis for 38 years. The tree in front of our house is one under consideration tonight. This is the 4th time I've appeared before this committee to ask you to not remove this tree. Absolutely nothing has changed with this tree to cause a reconsideration of an agreement that is in place regarding its trimming. Additionally, these tree applications discussed tonight are also in effect neighborhood compatibility applications. And I'm requesting that you consider neighborhood compatibility when you're making your decision. Now the last slide, please.
Last slide.
That's it. The applicant had this view on the day that they purchased their home. This is an MLS listing picture taken from the Collini's balcony on the day they closed escrow. The view is not an unobstructed view of the ocean and actually shows a tree that is quite taller now than the tree is today. The applicant showed you a picture that appeared to be digitally manipulated a little bit to show you what they said would be the view if the trees were trimmed, but that really wasn't an accurate picture. The view they achieve after a trim is greater than that, and I find it curious that a picture of an actual trim from their home was not included in their package. They're not attempting to regain a view that they had. Look at the picture. They're attempting again to gain an unobstructed view that they've never had. And it would be a catastrophic loss to the residents of Via Acalones if the trees were trimmed or removed. The PV city policy values the city trees and does not support.
Ma'am, I want to interrupt you
Yeah.
because it sounds to me like you're talking about the next petition of the Colleen's rather than,
Will you call me up?
oh, okay, I said on this item, but I didn't realize. Go ahead and finish.
Okay, I'll finish. Can I give my time back, please? Can I get some?
Yeah, you have a minute left.
Okay, thank you. The PV state city policy values the city trees and does not support removal of healthy trees. Per Carl, these trees are not diseased, they're old, but they're healthy. The applicant claims the trunk of the trees has grown up, so their trimming is minimally effective. But Carl said in his report that that's not true. Trunks grow in diameter, not in length. So they can be trimmed back to the 20 feet that we had compromised in 2017. That compromise was established and agreed upon by all, approved by city council, and is still in effect to allow the applicants to trim the trees to 20 feet. That would significantly improve the view that they have when they purchase their home and allow the residents of Via Acalones to retain their trees. Back to the first slide. Finally, why would two applicants on a completely different street be allowed to determine and change forever the neighborhood compatibility and character on Via Acalones with the removal of 5 trees that no one on Via Acalones wants to lose? The tree management policy specifically states the removal of trees should not alter the unique feeling of the neighborhood, and the removal of these trees would do that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Okay, I don't think we have any more speakers. Item number 5. Nope.
Sorry, I'll make it really fast.
Well, hold on.
I wrote it on my card. I wrote it on.
Oh, you wrote multiple.
I wrote all 3, yeah. I just wanted to make sure. Give my 2 cents.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just concerned about removing all of these trees on Via Acalones and leaving some behind. So not all of the trees on Via Acalones that are carob trees are tagged. And there are other trees on that street that are way higher that are not carob trees as well. And why would they want certain trees and not the other trees? And if you go back to the first slideshow that had the oval around those trees showing their view, they, it's, I don't know why are only certain trees included in this application for removal, why are others are not? This inconsistency just raises some questions about what the underlying intent of this plan is. I fear that approving this request will kind of set a dangerous precedent, paving the way for removal of even more trees on Via Acalones and in the future, even other kinds of trees, not just carob trees. I mean, there are, the scenic part of Palos Verdes has many different trees. And in that picture, it showed some other tree that was way higher than those carob trees. Well, let's say you guys approve this now. How do I know that tomorrow somebody else won't say, well, let's remove that tree, and let's remove that tree. So, and I don't think a cost should be a deciding factor in determining the fate of the trees. Because once the trees are gone, they're gone, and their benefits are gone forever. These trees are essential as part of the character, and we've said that, and I don't want to repeat everything, but I urge you to please reconsider, please not to remove these trees.
All right, thank you. Someone else raised their hand. Tell me your name. Just come up. Okay, come on up.
Good evening. Good evening, Parklands Committee. My name is Tricia Fallon. My husband, 2 daughters, ages 8 and 4 years old, and I recently moved to Palos Verdes Estates at the end of August 2024. We are the new homeowners at 2224 Via Acalones. One of the 5 mature carob trees that is being petitioned to be removed by the applicants is directly in front of our property. Therefore, your decision will have a significant impact on our lives. As new homeowners, what drew us to buy our home in Palos Verdes Estates were the rolling hills, lush landscape, scenic beauty, and top-ranked school system. When we drove onto Via Acalones for the first time, the first thing that caught our eyes were the canopy of carob trees that line the streets. 2 months after moving into our new home, we were notified about the applicant's intent to remove our trees. They are asking for the trees to be removed for the sole purpose of enhancing their own private view that they feel entitled to. Their actions are self-serving and inconsiderate of their neighbors. Imagine asking to chop down trees that are not even in front of your own property, but on a neighboring street when these trees have done no harm to you or anyone else. The carob trees not only provide beauty and character to our streets, they also provide shade and privacy for our homes. My 4-year-old daughter's bedroom is right in the front of our house. If the tree is removed, it will leave my daughter's bedroom very exposed to the outside and also leave our street very bare and naked. Every morning, when I come into my daughter's room to wake her up for the day, the very first thing I do is open the blinds to see the beautiful trees in front of our property, and it truly brings me joy and reminds me of why we chose to live in Palos Verdes Estates. These majestic trees add such character and softness to our street and have been here much longer than some of our longest residing residents. Not only do we enjoy them, but also our surrounding neighbors who do their daily walks on our streets. These 2 applicants have tried on multiple occasions to have the carob trees on our street removed unsuccessfully. I find it odd that there are several residences on Via La Brea that have very similar, if not identical, views to the applicants, but have never petitioned for our trees to be removed. Just the same 2 applicants continue to take up city resources and time. How many times do the residents on Via Acalones need to go and fight to keep our trees? Enough is enough. As appointed decision makers for our community, I urge you to do what's environmentally responsible and beneficial for the majority of residents and not just a few. Please uphold the decision made by the committee and Palos Verdes City Council in 2017 that allows the applicants to trim the trees to 20 feet annually. We, along with their neighbors on Via Acalones, are not in favor of removing the trees. We ask you to deny approval of PC 58724. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anyone else on this item? Okay, come on up.
Provided a card, Don Segula.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, got it.
Good evening, my name is Don Segula. My wife and I have resided at 2208 Via Acalones for over 35 years. First of all, I want to thank the committee for their time and dedication in serving the city professionally and voluntarily. Having served on the committee, I have my experiences clearly get lost in the rounding of the research and work you do, so thank you. I'm supporting a yes on trimming and no on removing the carob trees that were cited. I also want to recognize the city forester regarding his diligence in preparing a fastidious and pertinent staff reports. In particular, I call attention to those cited on page 7 of Mr. Vernick's presentation. There it cites the city's approval to, in 2017, as previously noted, to trim the trees annually. More recently, that is a few days ago, I believe he reinforced the applicants to trim the trees to 20 feet or so. I would also note that this is the 4th time, as previously stated by others, that similar applications have been made, and the 4th time that we've had to defend the trees. The city council, via Acalones, the city council has previously ruled that these trees would not be eliminated, but would be permitted to be trimmed by the applicant or applicants on a yearly basis. It appears the applicants keep asking the same question over and over, expecting a different result, as opposed to abiding by what the city and city council has previously approved. As Mrs. Waterman stated in her recent letters to the committee and city council, these trees are a testament to the city's philosophy that values the beauty of its landscape. I would add that they also add to the value of our properties and their appeal. I also want to say something about the process here. Our neighbors hardly received an appropriate or fair opportunity to prepare a response or formal report in defense regarding this application. The public notice process is tilted to the applicant's advantage in this case. The 3 applications were received in mid-October, providing the applicants and the resources over a month, as they in fact attested tonight. Public notice was provided a few days ago near mid-November and provided little time for our neighbors to approach the city's resources and provide the preparation that's required. They requested a proposal and it was not given. Luckily, we have nimble and resourceful neighbors who are able to prepare under unnecessary pressure and duress. To me, the city's response to our neighbors' request characterized kind of an administrative instability. I'm sure that was unintentional. I hope it was. I hope that the city and its committee will address this process and communication pattern. After all, to use a football analogy, my neighbors were not asking the city to expand the end zone, nor were they being asked to use a rubber ruler to remeasure anything. Just a few more days. Also, I recognize the efforts required by the city forester to attempt to orchestrate the balance between results and needs of neighbors and their objectives.
Sorry, Mr. Scola, you've run out of time.
And I want to thank the committee for their consideration and listen to my comments and recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much.
We look forward to the trimming.
Okay. Let's see, do we have anyone else on this item, number 5? Who wants to speak from the public? Okay, hearing nothing. Oh, we do have. What is your name, sir?
My name is Nacho Mijanaiku.
I'm sorry, I've got your card here, just didn't
All
have
right.
a number on it.
2240 via Acalones. I'm one of the oldest residents here. I've been here since 1979, 55 years. So we talk about these trees that have been there for a long time. And many other people who are complaining, probably they built their houses much later. So the views have been already there. But I empathize with the applicants because I'm sure it's a financial burden for them to be paying money every year. But it's what it is, that you can't do anything about it. I don't know whether I can find my slide.
In my deck, about halfway through.
Can you just go through, please?
That is my.
Go ahead. I just have only 2 slides. I'll just.
Yeah, go back to
Sir,
my.
Sir, can I ask you to speak into the microphone so that they can pick that up
Thank you.
on the video?
Which slide are you asking for?
Keep on going,
Go back
maybe I
to
can
my
pick it
slide
up.
deck, Carl, about halfway through.
That's okay, you don't have to stop the time.
Sure, that's it.
Those are your slides, Carl. Those aren't my slides, those are yours.
Burning slide, you wanted me to go back to a different presentation?
Yes.
Well, sir, why don't you just continue on?
All right, what I want to mention was, like, we have these trees, so like go to 2300 block, it's totally empty, it's barren, without any trees. And also, I had a slide with the designated tree, those looks terrible. I mean, they're dead. There are a couple of things which are flourishing, but that's what I want to show in the slides. So, couple of people mentioned about having the designated trees, and those are not acceptable. Just keep the trees as they are and go back to the 2017 agreement you had related to the trimming of trees annually. I know it can be a financial burden, I empathize with you guys, but it's what it is. If you want to keep that tree at 18 feet or whatever the forest recommends, just keep on trimming the trees.
Sir, you need
Thank
to
you.
speak to us, though. You can speak, we can't hear you. so-
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, you have a little more time. If you have
Okay,
something.
all right. So what I suggest is, whatever the 2017 agreement, keep it as is, and let the people who want to trim the trees, go ahead and trim the trees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's see. I have one more, any more on number 5? I have one more card.
Make an observation.
Well, no. Did you?
I filled out.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It's
Well,
not gonna
listen.
be even 20 seconds. If you go back to the slide where we circled those trees.
Go ahead, that's fine. Let's try to be courteous. Let's try to be courteous. Really, please,
It's just an observation.
please, let's not heckle. Let's speak, come on, let's speak.
The picture of Penzler's house on those trees. Just an observation. Right, so if you look, there is a roof not far from the height of the trees. I mean, you can trim the trees. And, you can take away the trees, you can't take the roof of the house off. I mean, it's visible right through, it's right in their view. They're complaining about the view, but there's a roof right there in their view. So, I mean, I know everybody is obsessed with the view. This is a very nice view as it is. Just trim the trees, we don't need to remove them. Thank you.
The rooftop is
Thank you.
lower than the top.
On the picture.
Okay, now,
And
I don't think we have anyone else, unless I'm mistaken, on item number 5. Anyone else? Are we okay? All right. Okay, committee discussion.
Yeah, real quick, I just have a question on,
Why don't you start, Steve?
I will. The slide, that they showed with the root damage, I think on 2224 on the driveway, who is responsible for that? Is that the city's responsibility or the resident?
It's the resident's responsibility.
To take care of it and fix it? So the city, even though it's a city tree and the city tree is making that happen, the city doesn't have any responsibility there legally or?
Yes, I agree.
Yes,
It's a private driveway, so they're responsible for the maintenance of their driveway.
okay, even though the tree is actually making that driveway come up.
Possibly
Could be,
the tree is added to the driveway. I couldn't tell you how it was constructed or whether it's some compaction or, the way the driveway was built, what is causing it to break. It's probably, easy to say it's a tree, a root of a tree, but I'm not sure. But the city doesn't repair driveways.
Okay,
It is typical for Parkway to be maintained by the adjacent owner in many cities.
okay, that's the answer.
Anything else?
No.
All right.
As a walker and a runner and a cyclist, I really appreciate the character of Via Acalones. In fact, I noticed recently when I was walking through there that the streets, you know, as you're walking, you're looking up, it's a great view for walkers. And then when you get beyond that current stretch of trees that they want to remove, it does look very barren. And I guess that's historically where trees have been removed, but I would say, actually, I take the trees over that barren look. I also appreciate that, you know, that so removing the trees from the Acalones would really change the character of the street. And having stood on Tom Beckler's porch, he does have a very expansive view of the, you know, the whole South Bay. And as Ann pointed out before, that I think that the telephone pole is probably a bigger eyesore and potential impact on the value of his property than some trees would be. So I would err on the side of continuing to maintain the trees at a desired height or approved height. I'm sorry for the financial impact, but that's the world we live in. Trees grow and they'll keep growing. So I guess the owners have to decide what kind of view they want and, you know, where they want to live. So yeah.
So I appreciate all of you talking tonight. I think what I've heard, you know, mostly is in opposition, and I'm in opposition as well, as you heard my opinion earlier. However, what I also have heard is the financial part of it. And as someone who pays to trim my 2 street trees, and also I've repaired my driveway as well, I took that responsibility, and what I don't hear is that the person who, these 2 applicants, they have been paying for it. But what would be, we're not gonna vote on this tonight, but what I would suggest is that the neighborhood comes together and pools their money, because the city is not trimming trees at the rate that you want them trimmed. And if we vote tonight to trim the trees to the 2017 agreement, still, I would hope that the neighborhood would embrace that and pool your money in terms of supporting that, so that you all have, you all have interest in terms of making sure it's right. And you guys love your neighborhood, and you also love your views, but you also have to respect each other. And it shouldn't be, a neighbor who's on another street paying to trim your tree. I mean, I would just think that we need to have ownership in terms of taking care of our trees in the neighborhood. And since your street has such character in terms of your character trees, the neighborhood should get together on this. That's just my opinion, but it would be helpful. You guys have spoken eloquently tonight, and I think in general you're on the same page. It's just that we get caught up in this, and we shouldn't have to come back in another year or 2 and talk about this again.
Well said.
Yeah, thank you
Very
for
nice.
that. Thank you for that. And, these are really hard decisions. There's not an exact answer, because the rights of 2 different parties in each case, or multiple parties, are affected. So it's just not black and white. You guys all know that. And people get their dander up over somebody not being reasonable. But these things can go either way. Under our rules and the guidelines that we use, I mean, there's a view involved, and there's also the rights of privacy of folks about the trees. But I come back to, in this case, we've already decided this in 2017. So I think it's kind of difficult for us to stray too far from that at this point. That's where I come down on it, because we can't keep deciding these things differently definitely sympathetic to the view issue, and I want us to address when we bring a motion, how far I want to trim the trees, continue doing that. I like Ann's suggestion, easy for me to say, of sharing the cost. I don't know, we're not gonna order that, but what I'd like to do is fashion a solution that continues the trimming, continues from 2017, what's already been decided. But perhaps we could go a little further and still retain the health of the tree. So that's what I would like to do. To me, I think we can go maybe to 18 feet. And that will restore more of the view. Obviously, Mr. Beckler already has a good view, and there are other things compromising it, but you know, the trees are an issue, so I understand that as well. So that's where I come down on it. I think that's the motion we should make.
Is 18 feet doable, Carl?
Yes. All right.
17.
Bargaining.
Well, to balance them with the other two.
I think that's, you know, they're as high as 23, so it's a pretty significant drop. I know.
That's doable.
Do you think I
So
should
look.
go? Because it's kind of like the same application.
Well, you know, I'm sorry, we can't just chatter, we gotta kind of keep the status. Hold on. So, look, maybe what I'm gonna do is make a motion that, PC 587-24, application to remove the 3 carob trees located in the parkways adjacent to 2221 and 2224 Via Colonis. I recommend that we move to deny the application, but we approve trimming, not only that was approved already in 2017, but that we approve the trimming down to 18 feet
And
with the standard conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
we're talking annual.
Second. That's right.
I'll second that.
Second that. All right. We have a vote.
Committee member McKinney,
Yes.
committee member Nye,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rossi,
Yes.
Chair Cooper,
Yes.
motion passes.
I'm going to call a intermission for 5 minutes. Can I do that?
Mr. Cooper? I think we can end this meeting right now if you want me to.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Would you rather, we'd like to just go with the same thing,
It's the same.
and then everybody can go
That's what
home.
you said. Exactly the same.
May I speak?
Sure, go ahead.
That's what they're saying.
Mr. Chairman, you may want to bring it back to order.
Okay, all right, all right, let's not break because we may in fact be able to. Hold on. Thank you. All right, Mr. Rigg.
Yes, in the interest of knowing where this is gonna go, and in the interest of what the committee said of trying to mend some fences between the 2 streets, we would ask to obviate the staff report, and if there's no testimony based on what I'm gonna say, in which we would offer is to not rescind our application for removal, but to agree with the same decision you came up with on the last application, which is to deny the removals and to reduce the trimming to the 18 feet, which is what I believe you came up with.
Yes.
And that's what we would offer.
So for the record, Mr. Rigg, you're speaking on item number 6.
I am on behalf of the committees.
Okay, and so, I guess, you're not, pardon me, you're not withdrawing the application, but you're basically know where it's gonna go. So
Right. I think if I
Why don't
withdraw
we-
the application, I can't get the 18 feet, but I want the 18 feet.
Do we make a motion?
I don't want you to do that. Why don't we do this? I want that result to occur, but I think we need to do things in order. So,
I would just ask if there's anybody that wants to speak on the item, and then you can waive the staff.
that's what I want to know, if we can waive the staff report. All right, so the applicant is waiving the staff report, and Mr. Rigg has spoken on number 6. Does anyone else need to speak on number 6 in light of Mr. Rigg's? Okay, so,
I can make a motion.
go ahead.
I move that on PC 588-24, we deny the application to remove the care of trees located on Parkway adjacent to 2225 and 2228 via Acalonis, but allow tree trimming down to 18 feet and include the conditions of approval if they are required.
I second that. Have a roll call.
Committee Member McKinney, Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rossi,
Yes.
Chair Cooper,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, just before you go on, want to double check so we have a record. In item number 1, is there the recommendation to allow?
Item number 1, what?
Committee member Nye, in item number 1, was there the recommendation to allow trimming of the tree, or was it just?
Before I choked to death, whatever we did, we already did, so I got kept. We talked about it.
Yes. I think it was trim the tree, and I'm not sure if you had included standard conditions. And was your intention to?
The intention was to include standard conditions. All right, so on that note, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
One thing, well, it's still a free permit, right? It's still a free permit, like the police. Call it, like, the staff must know what's going on. I know, I appreciate it, thank you.
See, I don't know that word. I didn't know. Thank
I've seen that.
Right.
So that's where.
I look at it logically where, okay, well, anyone can speak on the item for the public.
No, that's
What am I supposed to do? I start shutting everybody down.
But we had that.
Then it's gonna be, so, I mean, this was a powder keg that I was just wanting not to go off. It kind of did.
Well, but just because I know people in the audience didn't understand.
No, they were getting mad. They were getting mad at this. One of the guys was.
So you said 5.
No, but we had that before. The applicant just gets 5 minutes, and the consultant, the husband, and wife.
Anybody else, 3.
Then their spouse can come in for 3 more.
No.
They got to double up
They're
like 3
included.
times.
No, but
They're
in
included in that.
the public.
Wow.
Yeah.
Carry on.
The other thing is. the city doesn't treat trees. No city-
Did you get everything you need?
Yeah.
Trees with this card, they don't take the height off, they trim them.
Thank you.
So.
To be able to track it, right?
We keep saying, this time, people are gonna.
We have it there, but it.
And keep saying.
No, I say about trimming, but they should trim.
No, they.
In a perfect world.